Hi, everyone, and welcome to Converge 2025. I'm Josie Bake, VP of Technology and head of our amazing data and AI practice for media and experiences. And I'll be your host for the next 2 days as we explore how the world is moving beyond AI paralysis and into a new era of execution. Over the past few weeks, our team has been filming across Los Angeles, New York, London, Barcelona, Milan, Buenos Aires, Montevideo, and beyond, connecting with visionary leaders, creators, and technologists who are redefining what's possible with AI. Because this isn't just another virtual event, it's a global conversation about what's real, what's working, and what's next. Enough with the pilots and enough with the noise. It's time to move from experimentation into execution. A recent MIT study found that 95% of enterprise GenAI pilots fail. So the real question is, what's holding us back? And more importantly, how do we move forward? And that's what Converge 2025 is all about. Learning from those who are already breaking through the barriers and turning AI potential into real business impact. Over the next 2 days, we'll hear from leaders across industries, from Amazon, Riot Games, British Airways, the Los Angeles Clippers, and many more, sharing how they're transforming their operations, culture, and strategy with AI at the core. And tomorrow, we'll go hands-on with Globant Enterprise AI, live demos, deep dives, and real execution stories. No hype, just results. So let's get started. Please welcome Martin Migoya, Globant's co-founder and CEO, with a keynote that isn't about predicting the future, but redefining what's possible. This is Converge 2025. Let's go.
Hello, I'm Martin Migoya, CEO and co-founder of Globant. It is my honor to welcome you to this year's edition of Globant Converge. At Converge, we bring together the world's most engaging innovators, thinkers, entrepreneurs, and executives. We go beyond market hype, and we like to have conversations on how the most innovative technologies can bring meaningful change to an organization. Today, we're living through one of the most exciting and disruptive moments in technological history. The speed of change just keeps accelerating. AI and its capabilities can now be applied to any industry of the global economy. There has been incredible progress, but also a paradox of choice. This can produce AI paralysis. Organizations wait for the perfect model or the promise of instant transformation. Over the past few months, we have seen a healthy dose of realism on the AI space. There has been a shift beyond hype towards tangible and effective adoption. There are 2 races in AI right now. The first race is about building foundational models. OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, xAI, Google, and many others are pushing the frontier every week. The second race is about applying AI better, faster, and with clear return on investment for specific business problems across industries. To win, companies don't need to bet on a single model. They need trusted partners who can navigate a dense, shifting forest of options, partners who bring domain expertise, integration skills, and disciplined delivery. Last quarter, we introduced AI pods, virtual modular teams for the digital workforce. Powered by agentic AI and orchestrated by our experts, AI pods are delivered on a subscription and consumption-based model. This model is aligned by outcomes, not hours. It is guaranteed time and cost savings, clear metrics, and predictable impact. Supporting our AI pods is Globant Enterprise AI, our orchestration platform and the golden path for AI adoption at the enterprise level. It provides access to all major LLMs. It also offers traceability and auditability, granular cost and access controls, and a library of plug-and-play processes tailored to an industry. Just as we have been employing AI to help our clients reinvent their industries for over a decade, Globant is applying this technology to reinvent our own. Our approach and vision towards AI as a whole includes realism plus optimism. Recognize the challenges and at the same time focus on unlocking human creativity and productivity through AI augmentation. Today we hope you'll enjoy the conversations from some of our partners who have embarked on this transformation themselves. But we are not here to speculate. We're here to act. Converge 2025 is your chance to go beyond AI paralysis and see AI in action. You'll hear from top minds. You'll explore strategies that deliver measurable return on investment. It is time to act, to build, to lead and redefine what's possible. So let's get started.
Global leaders are choosing a new model. La Liga chose it. YPF chose it. Many more already did. AI Pods by Globant. The first subscription model for AI-powered engineering. Agentic AI, orchestrated and supervised by Globant experts. Ready to spin up in seconds, not weeks. Engineering, creativity, and automation reloaded. Aligned to outcomes. Subscription-powered. Token-based throughput capacity. This is more than a shift in technology. It's a new way to move, build, and grow. No more software as a service. It's time for services as software. Globant, technology that dares.
AI isn't just transforming industries, it's rewriting leadership. Our next conversation brings two leaders who see beyond the buzz. Martin Migoya, Globant's co-founder and CEO, and Sean Doyle, CEO of British Airways. They see this shift not as a tech race, but as a strategic inflection point, from digital touchpoints to AI-driven ecosystems, from ROI improvement to personalization, and from data silos to true business tech alignment. Because the real shift isn't just in the tools, it's how leaders use them. So let's hear from Martin and Sean.
Days of maybe typical web search being the basis on which your attributes are presented or your brand is even on the shelf are diminishing quickly. It's going to be about agentic AI and bots. And how do you make sure that you're relevant in that environment and ecosystem?
Welcome to Converge 2025. Today we have the honor to be here with Sean Doyle, CEO at British Airways. So Sean, thank you so much for being here today. It's a big honor for us to share this Converge 2025. I would love to kick it off by explaining to our audience, which are people from many different places, many different industries, some of the inner thinking of the transportation industry, of the airlines industry, and which are those things that are coming, which are the things that will become paradigm shifts moving forward with all these new things that are happening. So what's your vision on that?
Yeah, well, Martin, first of all, thank you for having me here this morning, and it's a pleasure to be here in Globant's offices here in London. We're working on a very exciting transformation with Globant as a key partner, and it's great to kind of meet the team here and see the culture of this amazing company in action. In terms of transport, it's fascinating to look at the last 5 years and what we've seen coming out of the pandemic, and probably think about what the next 5 years holds as well. I think the first thing we've learned is the desire to travel is very innate and very important to people. And a lot of people felt that we would have a very slow recovery from the pandemic. We've had a very quick recovery. And even though business travel isn't back to the levels it used to be at, that's been more than backfilled by this boom in leisure travel. My sense is that the liberty of traveling, when it was removed from people, triggered a kind of sense that when I get this back, I really want to explore the world and kind of restore that liberty. I think it's innate to human beings. I think what we're entering into now, I suppose, is the fusion of what I would call a very, traditional infrastructure industry with some very exciting technology. And I think what we do every day is, we've engineers and pilots and cabin crew and ground staff, and we physically transport people around the world. And for many years, we probably did that in a very mass market way, using traditional analog technology. we now, I think, can do it in a very hyper-personalized way. I think curating the experience to make sure that every customer is treated uniquely, also being able to manage situations or disruptions customers encounter in a far more effective way. I think they're going to be some of the themes that emerge. And also I think this sort of integration of wider experiences associated with air travel that we don't necessarily curate using artificial intelligence is going to be a very, very big trend that develops, I think, pretty quickly.
And one of the things you mentioned there is that technology is changing everything, which, by the way, we are helping to transform for you. And we were discussing in one of our meetings before around the idea of how AI will change in some way how people interact with brands, right?
Yes, yes.
And which are the changes that AI will bring to the table when agents, instead of people, are visiting your sites or trying to make the reservations or trying to deal with the complaints or the unexpected events. And there's a massive transformation that are happening for all the brands. How that is affecting, or how that would affect in the future your industry or your company?
I think every time you talk about this is changing and developing at a pace that we couldn't have anticipated. I think what you're going to see is agents, probably managed by the big tech companies, will manage huge dimensions of people's consumption choices in life. And I think brands that, fulfill some of those consumption choices, like air travel and hotels, will have to figure out, one, how they get their brands in the shop window, and two, how they curate their brands in an era when, so much unstructured data can be used now to kind of form a perception of the brand. And I think it's something that we're just about navigating through. The days of maybe typical web search being the basis on which your attributes are presented or your brand is even on the shelf are diminishing quickly. It's going to be about agentic AI and bots. And, how do you make sure that you're relevant in that environment and ecosystem? So I think it's a big challenge. It's also an exciting opportunity. And I think you've got to lean into it. Otherwise, I think you run the risk of being left behind by, this revolution, for want of a better expression.
You mentioned something a few minutes ago around the hyper personalization. And I think it's a quite interesting concept. And I think we have been trying to get there for many, many years, right? And now that you are, creating all the content and the things that you think your customers want, then comes agents that are something different. So how will you handle those two things? I mean, on one side, real customers visiting your sites, and on the other side, agents visiting your sites. You need to be relevant for both of them. The old days of being relevant only for people are over, so now we need to be relevant for a much larger audience, including agents that are not people. And how that will affect the British Airways heritage, right, in some way.
Yes, I think it's a fascinating kind of future to contemplate. The first thing I would say is that the work we're doing with Globant in building a new digital experience is going to be so important because, one, it will give us, I think, a modern platform from which we can meet existing expectations. And, it's fair to say that we're probably behind the curve in meeting those expectations based on the fact that, ideally, we would have modernized our platform 5 or 6 years ago, but we're getting there, and I think we've a leapfrog opportunity. Secondly, the ecosystem will allow us to do a lot more releases and a lot more products to get to market a lot more quickly. And I think it will also allow us to personalize products to individuals in a way that we haven't done before. And I think both of those, features will be very, very important in navigating through this new environment. I think thirdly, we're doing a lot of work to kind of structure our data in a way that's a lot more deployable into customer experiences. And we have fantastic touch points physically with all of our customers. I think a customer might have 59 different data footprints when it travels across the airline. And we have that data, we curate it, and now we're able to integrate it into, I think, a very meaningful digital experience which treats every customer uniquely. I think how you then present that in front of customers and agents is a new challenge. And I think that's where partnerships are going to come in. And we have a queue of people wanting to partner to kind of curate our brand and present it. But I think it is a big dilemma for companies which are more physical and infrastructure based, like British Airways.
So we talk a lot about customer experience and hyper personalization. Let's talk about back-end processes. I mean, there's tons of things that can be either automated / accelerated by this new technology. What's your strategy there, and what you're thinking of how to tackle that?
I think this is kind of obviously, if you think about 2 years ago in AI, people were kind of excited by it but worried about hallucination. Now we're looking at the ability for agentic AI to transform businesses and to fix an awful lot of problems. And I would say there's a lot of process intense ways we run the airline today using old technology that we can simply revolutionize. And a lot of problems we can fix in our airline, and a lot of opportunities to repurpose our people to really do what they love doing, which is interacting with our customers and dealing with their problems in a very intimate way. And I think that's something that we're beginning to see take root in the company, and it's very, very exciting. I think also, I think AI will just release an awful lot of capacity. I think the ability for companies to kind of do more things more quickly and execute it efficiently is going to be transformed by this capability.
Well, look, in my industry, everyone's saying, okay, now everything will be faster, and you will become more efficient, so on and so forth, so you will need less resources, and you will need... I would say, yes, on one hand, yes. But on the other hand, hundreds of projects that didn't exist before. I mean, projects that you were not able to do it because there was no technology, now are possible. So the net effect between those two things tend to be like much higher in terms of which are the amount of projects that we will be able to execute moving forward. And by the way, you were talking about, kind of, there's two wars here. The first war is fighting for who's going to be, or who's going to have the best LLM, right?
Yep.
And then you have a ton of players. We counted on Enterprise AI, our platform for automating processes there. We counted around 140 different LLMs in which we can connect and solve different problems for different things. And that's one war that's going on right now. A massive amount of resources are being deployed. The second one is how to use it, like you and me. It's how to use it to solve real problems in real world, to make real efficiencies.
Yes.
And I think that many CEOs are still, paying more attention to who has the best LLM instead of paying. What's your position on that?
Well, I think right now, you're right, it's an evolving landscape, and every month you hear of a new company having a new edge.
Yeah.
What we've done is we've rolled out Copilot licenses to all of our people, 5,000 people, and we're just saying, okay, well, let's get this technology embedded, let's put it in as a core capability. It's a way of doing business, and I think we generate both the familiarity and the enthusiasm to use it to make our lives better. And the other thing, I think, I look at young people, and what happens with technology typically is younger people start using it and we follow as older users. And I look at the way, kids of my son's age, they talk into a phone now to get the answers to their problems rather than even do search. Even the days of typing appear to be gone, and they're using, AI LLMs to figure out, what they're going to do and where they're going to go. So, that's happening in front of us. I think what we have to do is have a fair bit of discipline about how we use it for transformation. And what we're looking to do is kind of work at a group level to figure out what are the use cases where it can have the biggest impact, what problems are we trying to fix, and actually make sure that we have a very, relatively, I wouldn't say disciplined process for deployment, because otherwise it can become a very expensive kind of smorgasbord of disparate activities. So I think when you go deep into your architecture and into your systems and want to transform something, I think you need to be relatively clear about what you're doing and what output you expect. And I think that's something that we run in parallel with the broader kind of fertilization of the capability across our company. And
to finalize, Sean, my question is around, give me your vision for the next 5 years. I mean, if there's like a magic trick to get everything done the way you want, right? I hope we can help. But if there's a magic trick to do everything you want, very, very fast, how that will look like, how the company will look like in the next 5 years?
I think we have the opportunity to get more things done more quickly, more efficiently. And if I kind of bottle that up into all the problems we can fix in the airline, I think it's an incredible opportunity. Your brand is only as important as the problems it solves. And I think we solve a lot of problems for people, but there's a lot of things as well that we don't always get right. And we've a very, physical business which is prone to a lot of external variables that can hit us every day. I think we're going to be able to manage our environment a lot more effectively than we have done in the past. I think we won't be able to do it all ourselves. More and more what we want to do is kind of curate the customer experience in-house, but we're going to need great partners, we're going to need really good vendor solutions, and we're going to have to be very quick at customizing those solutions into a British Airways experience. But it's a very exciting time. I think this merging of a traditional infrastructure business with a lot of physical attributes and the ability to have this transformational technology really run in parallel in shaping the business is something that we're very energized by.
Okay. Sean, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your partnership. Thank you so much for being here today. It's really an honor and really looking forward to keep on doing things together.
Thank you, Martin.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Ready to shake up your industry? Discover AI Studios by Globant, an industry-specific approach that accelerates transformation through the power of AI. Gain a competitive advantage. Supercharge your future with AI. Globant, technology that dares to delight.
Hi, Converge crowd. How are you? At GUT, we're all about bravery because we believe that bravery means business. The opposite of bravery, of course, is fear. Fear is the enemy of creativity. And when it comes to AI, there's been a lot of fear in our industry, especially in the creative industry. It's understandable. Every creative is insecure by nature. I know I am. But imagine waking up every day and having to face a blank page. Always with a tight deadline, higher expectations, and the pressure to create something the world has never seen before. It's terrifying. But fear not. AI is here to help. When you embrace AI in the creative process, it's like having your own creative entourage. Imagine having a writer, a poet, a musician, an artist, a filmmaker, an editor, a mathematician, a philosopher next to you all the time. AI is giving kids all over the world, from Lagos to Mumbai to Manila to my hometown of São Paulo, the ability to create content with the same visual impact as Hollywood. So, as a creative, you have two choices really. You can be terrified by AI, or you can do what the best creatives out there are doing. Embrace it. Learn as much as you can and have a lot of fun. Our next speaker is at the center of it all. He and his team are not just building tools, they are building a new creative playground. They are breaking down every technical and economic barrier that has creation in the hands of a few. He is the co-founder and CEO of Runway. He's here to show us what he calls the next frontier of imagination. Please put your hands together for a true visionary, Cristobal Valenzuela.
The thing about AI is that there are no rules about how to use it. It's a general purpose tool, can be used in and combined in any shape, way, or form that you want. Runway is a company that's been around for almost 7 years now. We're building frontier AI research and models to create new types of content. We make incredible, powerful video models and image models and world models that are now getting deployed in industries like filmmaking, Hollywood, media, advertising, design, and architecture, pretty much everywhere. So in order to understand really where we are, you need to understand what the technology has done and where it's going. One of the things that is the most important to understand about what AI is doing is that it's fundamentally changing the power dynamics when it comes to making anything. We're not only lowering the barriers of cost of entry to do something. Now anyone can go into Runway and make a professional looking video. You can go into AI and make code. You can do all sort of things you couldn't do before. That lowering of costs and barriers of entry is kind of reshuffling, I would say, the modes and what people are seeing as unique on their own. And when you do that, you're doing a couple of things. The first one is like incumbents are questioning a little bit their defensive and the defensibility. And secondly, you're defining new industries, which is for me the most important and interesting one here, which is AI is creating all sorts of new markets and new industries. And those industries are up to grabs. There's opportunities for people to create entire new studios that are based in AI. And the people who are going to do it are not, for example, the traditional studios. They're going to be new folks, new and upcoming creatives. And that same approach, that same opportunity for an evergreen market is happening now across the board in advertising, in design, in architecture. We're seeing a reshuffling of how economies are built and who gets to participate in those spaces in the first place. Progress in AI has been basically accelerating over the last 10 years, and the last 3 or 4 have been perhaps the fastest we've seen until now. We're going to see that continue to accelerate even faster. I would say the next 24 months are going to be probably incredible in terms of what models can do and what these technologies are allowing industries across the board to do in ways that they never thought they could do before. Specifically in video, we've seen one of the biggest transformations being around high quality and high definition controllable video tools, meaning I can create pretty much anything I really want with the expression, the intonation, with the movements of cameras that I really want in ways that I couldn't do before. And so if you're creating with these tools, the first thing you need to recognize is that you as a creative person, if you're working in filmmaking or in advertising or in any creative industry, is that you have pretty much this impossible tools that are allowing you to create almost anything you want if you have the right vision. If you don't have the right vision, then it doesn't really matter. So when we speak about craft, we really need to understand it from I would say what people are making today out there. The most concrete example I can give you all is we have a film festival we've been hosting for almost 3 years now. We do it in New York and in LA and in Paris. This year we sold out the Lincoln Center in New York City. It's this beautiful a venue. There's 1,000 people there. We got 6,000 submissions from people all over the world that submitted to this film festival. The winner of the festival was one person. It was one person who is a musician who's never been done film before. He's never made a film in his life before. And he won the best film in the category. Who were, by the way, the judges were award-winning filmmakers and creatives from really recognized places of the world. And he managed to do it because he had a really consistent craft of idea and the vision he wanted to see in the world. He managed to use Runway for that, and now his life has kind of changed upside down for the best. He's now making and had gotten funding for a full production film he's working on. That kind of thing would have never happened before if it wasn't for this major tectonic shift that we're seeing in how people make things in the first place. And so being able and being good at understanding, at teaching what I call AI literacy will become crucial. And look, jobs will change. Jobs have always changed. I think we sometimes forgotten that we used to have people pressing buttons in the elevator so you can go up and down. We don't have that anymore, right? And we're much better off as a society not having that job in particular if we manage to get that person and have them upskill or have them do something else. The same will happen at accelerated pace. So the most important thing you need to do right now is learn how to use these tools, learn how to benefit from them, and learn that it's a huge opportunity for new economic growth that you can be part of if you just have the right mindset. This is an incredibly liberating and creative form of expression if you're an artist. They're very effective and efficient if you're an engineer, and they can be anything you want. The thing about AI is that there are no rules about how to use it. It's a general purpose tool, can be used and combined in any shape, way, or form that you want. And that from a creative standpoint is really liberating because you're at the beginning of the creation of a new medium. You need to see yourself as the one driving these models to specific outcomes. And it's not going to be a one-shot kind of solution where you just write a prompt and there you go, you basically made this insane output. You probably have to do it a bunch of times. You have to iterate, you have to find your way around. That's because this is a new medium, and finding the way of working with a medium takes time. Ever-evolving medium, it's changing, it's more accessible than ever before, but you still need to be in charge. These models don't create out of thin air, they create because someone is prompting them to do so in the first place. What really excites me moving forward is how to make sure that our company becomes the foundation on which everything that has a pixel, has a media component will be created inside Runway. So we're thinking about, of course, media and entertainment and advertising, but then you can think about many other industries where having video really becomes useful. Robotics is an industry where video becomes extremely useful for training robots. AVs, you want to train better cars to drive industries themselves. You need better data, better videos. There's so many scientific applications in which AI can become extremely powerful and useful. And as a company building the best models in the space when it comes to video, we want to make sure we can basically enable all of those industries to use our models.
It's more than a game. It's a world shaped by you, the fans, and our mission is to elevate that world by building technology that creates moments that last forever. That's why we're joining forces with Riot Games, to unlock the next level of esports and reinvent how fans live every experience. From the intensity of a global stage to the roar in the arena, we're pushing what technology can do, so esports can go where it never has. This is where gaming takes its next form.
Now, let's step into a different kind of arena, one where millions of players log in every day, a world where creativity meets computation and communities are evolving in real time. We're talking about Riot Games, the studio shaping the intersection of gaming, culture, and technology. Riot isn't just making games anymore. They're building ecosystems from esports to music, from storytelling to digital identity. In this new era, where AI and real-time 3D redefine creation and play, Riot's innovation goes beyond pixels. It's about emotion at scale. Joining us is John Needham, President of Publishing and Esports at Riot Games, and hosting the chat, Diego Tartara, Globant CTO. Together, they'll explore how data, design, and storytelling are building the next generation of entertainment. Let's head to Riot's campus in Los Angeles.
I think we're evolving the business model around esports, and that'll continue to happen. Because we're all gamers, because we live in this culture, we bring all of this together and we try to build a really deep relationship with our players, and that has been the key driver of why our games have lasted as long as they have and why we have as many passionate fans as we have.
Hello everyone, we're here with Sean Needham, President Esports and Publishing at Riot Games. Sean, thank you very much for letting us be here and share this amazing facility with us.
It's amazing, thank you for having me. It's been great.
So how has it been for you? I know you joined Riot Games probably 2017?
Yeah, it's been almost 9 years now.
9 years, that's
Crazy.
A lot, but you have
a
hell of a career before that. So how did you get here?
Yeah, I've worked at a lot of different game publishers in the industry, and I worked for Microsoft for a time up in Seattle. I met a guy who ended up leaving Microsoft and coming to Riot and immediately recruited me in. I'm a gamer, this is the gamer culture in the company, and he just knew I would thrive here. And so it was a great opportunity for me to combine my two big loves in life, video games and sports, together. So it's been awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what was it different about Riot?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the culture. There are very few companies where you have so many passionate fans of games actually working at the industry, and it matters because it's hard. Gaming as a business is a very hard business. You have to love the product to really be successful in it, and I believe that, and we have a lot of people here who believe that as well.
That's amazing. And speaking about the product, it all started with League of Legends
Yes.
at some point in the multiplayer online battle arena. But then evolved into a full ecosystem, entertainment ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's huge, and we will come back to that and talk a little bit more about that. But what were the pillars that allowed Riot to make that transition?
Yeah, I mean, we are a gaming company at our core, but we're, I think, a special kind of gaming company. If you know anything about Riot, you know that our ambition is to be the most player-focused gaming company on the planet. I think we are. Everything that we do goes through this lens of how are we improving the player experience. And so Riot has a special approach to that. We have a lot of capabilities across esports and music and consumer products and animated television that because we're all gamers, because we live in this culture, we bring all of this together and we try to build a really deep relationship with our players, and that has been the key driver of why our games have lasted as long as they have and why we have as many passionate fans as we have. We are them, we are the community, and we love to celebrate gaming together with them. And I think that makes a difference.
So when you go transmedia, right, and you moved into, again, animation, music, and that's amazing. How do you make all that ecosystem work for the fans, and how do you fit that back into the core of the game?
Yeah, and that's my job actually, is taking all of the out-of-game experiences and creating culture around our games, which is really fun to work in. It's hard, but it's fun. And it's really about getting people who have different capabilities, trying to find ones that have some affinity for games and are gamers. So we are constantly pursuing fandom in what we do, and I think the way that you build fandom is you take your players who love your game and you deliver other things around the game that you know they love, that's part of their culture, and that deepens the relationship to them to the point where you can graduate them from being players to fans, to self-identifying as fans of Riot, as fans of our games. And then that's when you build this really long relationship with people. It's not about just getting another game out like most publishers are doing. We are heavily invested in our games, and Riot invests more back in its players than any game publisher on the planet.
That's amazing. So I heard you speak about culture.
Yes.
Many times. And when you refer to culture, there's like no clear line between the company and the fans.
Yep.
And I perceive that
Yep.
a lot. So can you tell us a little bit, with the scale, how do you manage to retain that, which is actually part of your success?
I mean, it's pretty beautiful, actually. Gaming culture is pretty ubiquitous around the world. Gamers love similar things. Of course, it's playing video games, but things like anime and manga and esports. So all of this, regardless of where you live and your background, because you're centered on your fandom around games and the stuff that surrounds our games, that really gives you an opportunity to activate an international global community, and we lean very heavily into that. We have over 20 offices around the world because we want to have a local presence that's able to take what we make, and if there's slight adjustments we need to make to our content to have it resonate even more deeply with our players in that region, we have a team that helps us do that.
That's great. So I've been related to Riot for a long time, and we were actually talking about that before this interview.
Crazy.
And yeah, it's been a long time. And one of the things that I noticed was attention to detail. And this is something that has a lot to do with the industry, but what I sensed here was amazing, right? And it all came down to infusing that to all your staff. All your people. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, the internal culture of the company?
Yeah, I mean, when you have games like League of Legends is the most popular PC game of all time. Now Valorant is the biggest tactical shooter in the world. When you have Teamfight Tactics, the biggest strategy game now on the planet that no one's heard about, you touch a lot of players, and these players, because of the history of Riot and all the things that this company has done for players, their expectations are sky high. So anything that we produce here, one, it's very expensive and you really invest in the experience, but two, because we have so many people here who know what the community loves and who are as demanding as we think the community is for anything that we release, we just set our own bars very high. It's like we want to surprise and delight our players with everything that we do. And if that's the mindset that you're in, you're going to pay a lot of attention to everything that you're doing for those players. And we just, again, we genuinely care about our players in a way that most gaming companies don't.
That's great. So I bet you use a lot of partners, such as Globant, right?
A lot of partners, yes.
Yes, and I bet that properly selecting them is only part of the equation, but then there's a second aspect to it, which is bringing them on board as part of that culture. Any notes on that?
Yeah, I think we take a little bit different approach to partnerships than most companies. You know, before we even start talking business, and this is what was so great about our conversations early on, It's about, do we align culturally on doing great things for players, right? Do we care about that together? Is there an opportunity to collaborate in a way that we can do something really cool for players? And I think we saw that right away with Globant. Then we sort through the business, and then we have a number of ways I think that are unique to work with partners. So we have all of our big esports events where we'll do typical things like fan zones, but we also have unique things we do on our watch platform in Riot's websites. If you watch esports on this platform, we have this feature that's called Drops. And what Drops allows us to do is during certain moments in an esports broadcast, we can push digital promotions to our players. We can push digital items to them. Collectability is one of the main motivations of gamers generally. And our players just love these things, these like really simple things. And we do this all the way up to, we will, for special partners, design skins, in-game content. And our most famous one is Louis Vuitton, where we collaborated with their designers. We did a whole skin line in League of Legends around Louis Vuitton. That is one of the most popular skin lines we have in the game. So we just love to find opportunities to collaborate with our partners and do really cool things for players.
One of the things that I immediately noticed when I met Riot back in the days was that the game was not the most demanding one in terms of hardware requirements. Yes. Still, when we saw the tech stack supporting the game, etc., oh my God, it was technology was definitely, mainstream technology was definitely there. You have an amazing staff with awesome capabilities. So my question to you would be, in the light of the new technologies, and especially with regards to AI, etc., how do you see those technologies collaborating with your purpose, with fan engagements, with the business itself?
Yeah, I mean, it's always, as you can imagine, through the lens of how can we leverage technology to either better service our players or deliver like a really memorable, mind-blowing moment for them. I'll give you a couple of examples. Before our biggest esports events, like the finals of Worlds, we will do an opening ceremony. The ceremony will be a couple of music performances, we'll have dancers and entertainment, and then we'll bring the teams out in the sport, and the competition will start. We make a lot of virtual bands in our games, and for League of Legends, we have 3 or 4 now. We want these bands to come perform in these opening ceremonies, and we leverage augmented reality to kind of bring that to life. But these days, like looking forward, there's a couple of things. We're geeking out a lot on vertical feeds and short form content. We're leveraging AI to help us cut up our broadcasts into smaller segments that we can put out on our socials and put on short form video platforms. So that's been a lot of fun. But we're starting to look even more down the road because we want the experience for our players to be so amazing when they're with us. We're looking at AI, we're looking at all the data we have on our players, and we're thinking about how can we customize the experience for our players based on where they are in their journey with Riot. And we're going to continue to really push the limits on personalizing that experience across all vectors. So even in the skins that we promote in our store and everything else, it'll be a completely custom experience for each of our players.
I wonder how can that happen, because one of the things I've been hearing from the industry is that AI is bringing us closer and closer to that idea of one player, one game, right?
Yeah.
Hyper customization. So that idea of segmenting players and trying to bring a great experience for most of them, so you can play the game in different ways. Now it's actually moving towards creating a custom tailored experience somehow. But I'm wondering, in the case of League of Legends, as an example, how does it work for massive online multiplayer? What are the aspects that you can actually customize for each individual?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, right? Because we do so much. We have a huge community of content creators who are constantly churning out content that we look through and we try to curate to deliver to our players. But really, at the end of the day, it's all about the data that you collect. So we have collected just a ton of data that now we're probably going to need a power plant to power our servers so we can take all that data and synthesize it and then match it with all the content that we have, right, to deliver that back to players. There'll be other things too that we do with AI. We're already looking at better bots that our players can practice against in our games, which will be super fun. And I'm even thinking about, can we customize our esports broadcasts for each individual player based on what we know about them, because we have these amazing remote broadcast centers. We tag our content in a number of ways. We could deliver unique clips, unique live experiences to our players based on what we know about them, but it's gonna take a lot of horsepower to do that, and you guys are gonna help us.
We will, I promise. So speaking a little bit of the future, how do you envision esports moving forward? What's the future?
Yeah, I think we're still growing as a sport. I think we have figured out the right business model for esports. For a while, we were chasing broadcast revenues, and we have a philosophy at Riot. We want to be where our players are, and our players are all on free streaming platforms. So we made a decision a while ago, actually, that we weren't going to try to do exclusive broadcast deals with partners like traditional sports do, but that we would change the business model to be more based in selling digital content direct to our viewers. I want to customize the broadcasts as I described, and then we have all these interactive activities that we add real time to the competition. So I think the interactivity part of it will continue to evolve. And then, of course, this direct connection that our fans have to pro players and to us through chat and through social media. I think esports just does the best job with that and that engagement, because it's core to the game experience. Oh, and I forgot one thing. We did a huge innovation in sports broadcasts that's been really successful. It's called co-streaming.
Okay.
Co-streaming is where we take our main broadcast feed, we send it to an influencer, they talk over it, they maybe have a watch party with their friends, and then they rebroadcast it on their channels. This allowed us to reach new audiences we wouldn't have been able to reach before, re-engage players who may have churned out of our ecosystem. But it's incredibly popular. Over half of our viewership comes from co-streaming these days. So we did this before the Manning brothers did their NFL co-stream.
That's awesome.
Very proud of that.
So, John, thank you very, very much
Thank you.
for your time. This has been amazing. People, you should know this place, because trust me, it's unbelievable. Hopefully you will get to see a couple of flybys of the office so you get an idea. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You.
It's been super fun.
We're the software that can talk to any robot. I'd like to say we don't make robots, but we make robots work better together.
Hello, Florian. How are you doing? Very happy to be here. Amazing space you have here.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things we want to do is showcase what's happening in robotics, and this is our small way of showing that.
Nice. I really like the setup, and I really like how you have all the different setups to integrate different types of robots on different types of tasks, so you can get a real sense of what's actually happening. Very, very nice place. Let me ask you a little bit into robotics. What do you think are the biggest opportunities right now in the world of robotics?
Let me maybe start with a bit of a historical perspective, which is, robots have been around for maybe 6 decades, maybe even more. But the old robots were fixed function, pre-programmed. They can do the same thing over and over. The newer generation of robots, and that's where I see a lot of the excitement, are what I call smart robots, or autonomous robots. So these are robots that can sense the environment and operate alongside people. What that's been doing lately is opening up the space so that new industries that previously might not have used robots at all now can integrate them. And I would say, especially with all the labor shortages we've been seeing in many industries, whether you're talking about manufacturing, supply chain, healthcare, construction, retail, all of these industries are suffering from a labor shortage, especially if you take a global view. There are countries like Japan that have negative population growth, so finding workers is even harder. So now robots in a way are entering the workforce, right? They're becoming part of the workforce and working alongside people and, getting the job done.
I think that one of the things that changed a little bit throughout the years is that now you see more and more robots in what you would describe as uncontrolled environments, right? Like not robots that are following a mission or a task in a repeated fashion that is super controllable and super predictable, but being able to interact with changing environments and different setups. How do you see that trend moving forward, and how do you think AI and different technologies are affecting that?
Absolutely. So I think robots are getting smarter. They use AI or physical AI, so AI applied to the physical world, to first use sensors to understand the world. They have compute on board, so they can reason about the world around them, make plans, and then execute the plans and do the control part, right? So what that means is exactly as you said. Now the robots are gaining more autonomy or agency. So in a way, they're physical agents, right? Since we've been using this idea of AI agents. Now, I would say the state of the art is with world models and something called VLAs, which is Vision Language Action Models. So basically, you can train end-to-end a robot, and that's shortening the time and making robots more flexible, more versatile.
How do you see that the offering and the solutions that InOrbit brings to market is helping your customers, and how do you see the collaboration with Globant actually bringing more value to them?
Yeah, so one of our key offerings is something we call InOrbit Space Intelligence. And the idea is we're doing work in the physical world, as we were saying. We're innovating, I would say, at the intersection of agentic AI and physical AI, which are, some of the hottest trends right now. But we don't want to do this for demonstration purposes only. We actually are bringing this to the physical world. And what we do is software-defined orchestration applied to the physical world. So what that actually means is we're the software that can talk to any robot. I'd like to say we don't make robots, but we make robots work better together. What we're seeing right now is this idea of digital transformation, which has been around for a few years now, extending to the physical world, right? Through software, like InOrbit. And I think Globant has been a leader in helping companies with their digital transformation, which requires not just software, but in some cases, rethinking your processes, right? So I think we need to do the same thing for the physical world. A lot of times, robots are not just recreating an existing physical workflows, but they allow us to reinvent a workflow. The thing to keep in mind is robots do work. They're also collecting massive amounts of data. I think data is something that Globant knows a thing or two about. And I think obviously we do robot orchestration, but if you take a step back, I think what you need to do is you need to integrate all of the sources of data. I like to talk about orchestration as kind of like you're integrating all of these different data sources. You're using this kind of like comprehensive view of the space. That's why we call it space intelligence, to then drive the operations, the physical operations. And that might mean, directing a robot to execute a task. It could also mean just tracking manual vehicles like forklifts, which they're not going to go away. You're going to still have a lot of manually driven vehicles or carts. Now, if you can bring it all together, now to create harmony, you need a conductor to lead the orchestra.
What do you think are the biggest entry barriers for companies to actually start implementing more robotic solutions at scale?
Yeah, so we sometimes talk to companies that are at the very beginning of the robotics journey. Most of our customers are much farther along, but if you're just getting started, I would say get started, right? So it's actually reasonably easy and fast and not even that expensive to bring in an autonomous robot into an existing space. Like you were saying at the beginning, they don't need to change the environment for the robot. The robot adapts to the environment. So maybe get some experience, understand simple workflows work best to get started, but eventually you want to kind of like rethink your processes and not just repeat the same manual process, but now with a robot doing the same exact thing.
And I think that things like synthetic data generation and AI are helping a lot many of the companies to actually being able to implement this solution in their own business problems, right? Like some time ago that could have been like a blocker or something that slowed them down. And I see them accelerating and moving faster because of these technologies. How do you foresee that that's going to move forward in the future?
Not even in the future, in the present. So we're already, for example, using simulations. We can create, we use technology, like really advanced technology like Gaussian splats to, for example, we have a virtual version of the robot space. So we can, and then we have virtual versions of the robots. So we can try things out in the digital realm. We can then train robots in digital space, then change them to the physical space. And because from an InOrbit perspective, it's the same exact platform that's seeing both the digital and the physical versions. You know that if you're trying out a mission, for example, like a sequence of steps in the digital realm, then you are going to get almost the exact same thing in the physical world. And I say almost because the physical world is always messy and you can't fully predict. So there's always that last step of, this is what in the industry we call the sim to real gap, right? That gap is getting smaller and smaller. And, GPU accelerated simulation is a big part of that.
I talk to a lot of companies, and especially with the cutting edge technology, you can't just wait until that technology matures. You have to adopt and adapt, right? You have to adopt the technology and adapt to it as it grows and matures, and be flexible and nimble in order to make the most out of it, and not just wait until it's mature and adopted and proven by everyone to actually jump in.
I think what's interesting in how all of this is starting to converge is, we're seeing agents on the digital domain. If you think of robots, smart robots are physical agents. InOrbit itself is using agentic workflows and physical AI to understand the space. But there's this notion of delegation, right? Mm-hmm. So you may have this higher level kind of like business orchestrator in Globant Enterprise AI that's looking at all of these disparate systems and making recommendations. Then, InOrbit as that digital to physical bridge can then take that and then translate that to something that can be understood by the robots. We're like a translation layer for robots. And then the robots themselves have agency or autonomy to execute tasks. So for example, if there's an obstacle along the way, they'll know not to run into it or move around it. So I think it's, it's layers of agents and how you do this multi-agent orchestration that I think is really fascinating, more from a technology perspective.
And Florian, I'm interested in knowing what does the future look like for you? What are the objectives that you have for the next couple of years and what you are pursuing and looking after?
From a technology perspective, I think we're going to continue to see these kind of like special purpose robots, but we're starting to see more general purpose hardware. And if you're anything like me, my feed is all about robot videos. And a lot of those are, not quite ready for production. They're, maybe 70% demo. But what we're seeing is the pace at which this is changing, right, is incredible. So it's accelerating. From an InOrbit perspective, we're really focused not on flashy demos, but on impacting real operations for our customers. And for the foreseeable future, I think we're going to have both special purpose and more general purpose robots coexisting. Now you need to make them work together, and that's kind of what we do here at InOrbit.
That's amazing. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to actually host you here at Converge, and amazing place you have here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
So far, we've seen what AI can create. Now let's talk about what it takes to sustain it. Because scale isn't about size, it's also about design. Guibert Englebienne, Globant's co-founder and president of Latam and Globant X, meets Werner Vogels, CTO of Amazon Web Services, to explore how architecture drives innovation. From data to governance to agility, this is how the builders of the internet age are preparing for the AI age. A conversation about clarity, complexity, and what it really means to build for the next decade. Let's join Guibert and Werner.
Customers start to get to the point where there is enormous anxiety and fear of missing out. But they need to experiment first, and they need to learn about it. And I think fear is an extremely bad decision maker for you, which means our most important job at the moment is educating our customers. They are looking for a trusted advisor.
It's a luxury to have you here, and so thank you very much for flying all the way down here to Argentina. We at Globant, since we started, we've been involved into transforming organizations. In the way I put it, typically, I would say, I imagine a big river, a wild river. On one side of the river, there were traditional companies born before digital. And on the other side, there were those digital natives, where we had the luxury to grow. And during our 22 years of history, we've been helping companies move from one place to another. There are some companies that being born on an analog world, they had to do a lot of effort to actually reinvent. Many of them simply digitalizing a business. You were a retailer, and then suddenly you became an online retailer.
We were never a retailer.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about you in that case. But I would say there are many companies out there that we are helping transform. Some of them are very well known, like Netflix, shifting from DVDs to being a streamer. But in the case of Amazon, what really makes me admire Amazon is that ability that being born as a digital player, you actually itself took the courage to reinvent again and again from what it used to be a bookseller at the beginning to be a technology player, full-fledged technology player, delivering the infrastructure for the world to ramp up and to scale. That's something that you would never have expected from a bookseller. So I would like to start with asking, okay, what's behind the culture of Amazon and the thought process on what can be achieved? What makes Amazon so unique?
First, I need to start off with sort of doing this little correction. When I say we're not a retailer, of course we were in retail, but we were a technology company that just happened to do retail. If Shopify would have existed in 1994, Amazon would never have been a retailer. It would have been doing something else. Jeff was not Jeff Bezos. Jeff wasn't interested in was interested in books. He didn't want to start a bookshop. In 94, and this is, remember, a very long time ago, in 94, the word e-commerce doesn't exist. There is nothing being sold on the internet. The internet is highly unreliable. But Jeff is fascinated by the internet. He's thinking about what could you do there that you would not be able to do in an analog world. And a really good book, he just picked books. Really good bookshop has about 40,000 titles in stock, yet there is millions of books out there. You could build a bookshop on the internet with all the world's books in it. Not that we achieved that, but if that was his idea. The problem was, there was no book you could buy that said, and this is how you build a high-performance e-commerce website. Everything needed to be invented from scratch. So at its core, Amazon is a technology company. We just happened to do retail. We could have done healthcare. We could have done something else that was revolutionary, different, that nobody else had done. And so that is in the blood, in the culture of Amazon, that we need to build things. Because there was no software package that you could buy in 1994 that would help you build a website. There's no WordPress, there is no Drupal, there is no whatever. There's none of that. Everything Amazon needed to do, needed to build themselves. At scale, at incredible scale. And nobody else had ever built things at scale before. So Amazon engineers had a really hard job, because they were doing things, they were inventing technology the whole time. And that notion, that feeling of inventing things has never disappeared.
A cloud environment that made infrastructure something that you can consume as a liquid, that you didn't have to make big commitments, you can pull the cord off at any time, you could add new services. As we spoke earlier today, Globant with the AI pods is doing something similar when it comes to engineering, something where, building up a new team with no particular commitment in terms of, the performance, the outcomes, it was a less than ideal model. What do you think are the lessons that we can drive from Amazon's move into the cloud? We're trying to make the same to professional services.
First and foremost, you don't need to, or often you don't need to hire these people from the outside world that you want to do an experiment. So, crucial within Amazon is still the word experimentation. Yeah, and I believe that a lot of our customers should doing the same. So we need to provide an environment in which you can experiment. Now, retail, that's easy, because you can experiment there, and if customers don't like it, you pull the plug on that. Now, in this world, you have people that are really keen on building and experimentation and things like that. And so if you enter into a new world, let's say how to use this particular type of technology for that particular problem, but we actually have no idea how to do it, you go find a few people that actually have already sort of dove into that issue. Because probably when Gen AI became something that we have to actually do more for our customers, there are already 50 engineers who actually have a pretty good understanding of what that is. Because engineers have a tendency to just look ahead, to look to the next IDE or the next programming language. And by the way, there's a great book by Jeff Lawson, a former Amazonian, and who was the CEO of Twilio. And it basically tells the CEO and the board, if you wonder about technology, don't go and read the media or CIO magazine or whatever. Ask your developer. And that's actually the name of the book. Ask your developer. Why? Because they probably have already been figuring out where and how this technology actually is applicable and not. And in the case of AI, the first area where this is applicable is to our own developer problems. Yeah? Java 11 to Java 17, if we can automate that, gone. Writing documentation, who loves that? Nobody. Yeah? So if we can automate that one, great. Yeah? Unit tests, not so popular either. Yeah? So if we can automatically generate those kind of things, and it starts off like that. So, 1997, Amazon goes public, there's a letter to shareholder, all were ready. The second one in the definition, first one in the definition of the company is, if you're a short-term investor, don't invest in Amazon. We're all only here for the long term, meaning that we're willing to cannibalize short-term results in exchange for a long-term commitment to customers. The second one is, we'll be an experimental company. Experiment, measure, learn.
There seems to be like Bedrock and Globant Enterprise AI, they are tackling the uncertainties and that our customers, our corporate customers are facing when adopting AI. You spoke about the January 1st resolutions. I remember the November 30th event where we were celebrating in 2022 a goal from Julian Alvarez putting Argentina into a second round of the World Cup. And that same night, OpenAI released ChatGPT, and almost overnight, the simplicity of jumping into a web browser made it extremely appealing for consumers, but it doesn't seem to be that the case in terms of the corporations. What do you think is the vision of what's happening on the corporate minds and what is preventing them from moving even faster on the adoption of AI?
I think, again, what I said earlier, given that this has been dropped in a laptop to the consumer without educating before, and this was the case, why was that? Why did that happen? Why did it follow the old style, traditional, let's train some people, let's get them educated, let them be first adopters, let them get experience with it, and then look at sort of introducing this into the larger one? It's because there were two companies that wanted to fight for search. Search means advertising. So better search, better answers means more advertising cost or money or whatever way you want to get into it. It was never an education, it was never a promise at the beginning, and now we'll make all enterprises more efficient. Yeah, that was something that came after that. Oh wait, there's all these other things we can do with it. But the original goal of this competition was to fight for search. And as such, you know, customers start to get to the point where there is enormous anxiety and fear of missing out. Because if I don't do this, if I don't build a chatbot now, I will be out of business in whatever. Yeah? Or, you know, if I don't think about sort of introducing introducing AI into my HR system, they will be way too fat and overscaled, and we will be able to save much more money based on that. Absolutely, but they need to experiment first, and they need to learn about it. And I think fear is an extremely bad decision maker for you. We know that from our own lives. Yeah? If you get anxiety about something, maybe you should actually hold a little pause and think about it. And so we know that we need to pause and we need to educate ourselves, which means our most important job at the moment is educating our customers. For you as well, your customers as well. They are looking for a trusted advisor. Someone they can trust. Someone who will tell them, you know what, you won't immediately go out of business if you just first train your engineers in this such that they can make solid decisions, or work together with Globant as a partner to actually get many of my engineers trained such that they can make solid decisions up and down, and where the business people actually get a bit more training and knowledge than that they get out of the media. Do not let the media determine your architecture or your business. Why? Because media is interested in negative headlines. I've had interviews with media. The whole interview is so positive that you can imagine. And the headline is as negative as that you could think of. Yeah? Media does not have the best interest of our customers in mind. They want to sell more clicks, more advertising, more whatever. They're not the absolute best partner you can have in with respect to your technology. That's why you guys have a business. But being the trusted partner of your customer is important. They need to pick up the phone and ask those questions to you, or to me, or to us. We need to help them get to a point and get this anxiety part out of the way. Because then it can make some solid decisions, and then generative AI becomes just another tool. I think the best way to battle fear is education. And the best way to actually become trusted is to sometimes help them say no. I remember there's this letter on the wall of Jeff Bezos, a letter from the shareholders, from the publishers, that said, when he just launched reviews. And it was a very angry letter. The letter said, now customers won't buy that book anymore. And I go, oh, maybe they shouldn't. But helping a customer making a negative buying decision, this is in retail and doesn't necessarily go for tech. Help him make a negative buying decision, which means not to buy these things, means that you have a customer for life. Because he will trust that over the fact that you just try to sell them something. And trust is the best thing we can get from our customers. And for that, we need to be honest to them, and we need to help them to educate them and experiment and measure and learn.
Try to give some predictions on trends. You gave some on 2025. I was wondering if, given the fact that now we are approaching the years, and if you already have something in your mind about what's gonna come in the next 12 months.
I mean, that would not be fair. That's not a prediction anymore. Of course I know what I'm going to predict about. It's definitely some of the things that we've talked about. Because I think it is important to customers to really look at your customer base and think what is the biggest problem at this moment in the development space. It is not about a programming language. It is not about an IDE. It is about, am I losing my job through some AI thing? Yeah? At this moment, there's 2.5 million developers in Latin America. The expectation is, from the IDC or whatever, that in 2 years we'll need 3 million. That means in South America there's 500 million open positions for developers. We need to make sure that we start cranking up this pipeline. Yeah? In Germany, I don't know what the number was, but I always heard the number was 80,000 as open IT positions. Imagine AI becomes so good that half of that goes away. Then we still have 40,000 open positions. My predictions are thinking about those things that actually sit on the border of society and technology. After all, the kind of things that we build have impact on people. Yeah, and I need to look at sort of that there is a generation, for example, of engineers that is looking for more meaningful work than just writing code. The stuff that they do actually needs to have impact on the world. I see that around me. Yeah, and turn that into a prediction. That's easier, I can just look at. But I do think that we need to be more and more sensitive about the technologies that we have and the impact that it has on society. And then look at sort of that my predictions are not just a prediction, but maybe a few come with a little warning flag that says, think about this. Yeah? Think about this the next time that you give your kid an iPad. Yeah, just because you want it quiet. Yeah? Think about that if you have an interview, a solicitation, an interview with someone that is, let's say, in its early 20s today, and they are actually looking for meaningful work, that you actually can talk about them, what particular parts in your business they may actually be suitable for or be happy with. You know what? I want my engineers to be happy with what they do, because if they're not happy, they should go somewhere else. Not that I think, not that I fire them, but we as engineers have the most amazing job. Absolutely. We can go to work every day and create something new. Which other job has that? And maybe it's something really small new, but it's something new. Yeah, and as such, you know, I want people to be happy in that role. If that means that you're better off being actually at Epic instead of being at AWS, given that we're in the same town, mostly, or if you want to go to Microsoft, or if you want to go to Facebook, or whatever, where your skills and where your happiness level actually goes up, I am giving you a letter of recommendations to go there. Why? Because we're people and we need to be happy. We are spending, what is it? At least 40 hours of our very precious life, our time, with this work. You know, we better be happy doing it. And there is no reason as engineers that you shouldn't have a job where you're happy in. Because there's many open jobs out there that you can find, or you can find the one that actually makes you happy.
Werner, thank you very much. A round of applause, and thank you for coming.
When technology meets passion, then the unthinkable happens. And that's exactly the essence of what is technology applied to sport. As an iconic World Heritage Football Club, of course, our fan base is our most important asset. We need daily to find new ways to get engaged with our fan base, knowing that the relation that as a club like with our fan base is always put at the center of this relation. Due to that, of course, we need to interact daily, considering that the unique bond that we create with our fan base is only driven by emotion. Sport, as we've said, it's all around the emotion of the people, all around the engagement with a target that's not purely only a customer, but I would say a fan, though. So there is a very strong bond driven by emotion. In my view, the technology has to be seen definitely as an enabler for increasing the reach and working and building an even stronger bond. I do see technology not something that is, cooling down the relation with the fan, but on the opposite, it's basically helping clubs like ours in increasing the accessibility and increasing the bond and having new opportunity to increase our reach. So basically that's the path that we as a club we've done over years, and that currently what is positioning nowadays our club within a much wider entertainment arena made of all the other brands that create in any case an emotion with them in the engagement. If we come specifically to the situation of a club like ours, so playing in a league like the Italian one that's currently facing quite significant problem of distribution abroad, having the opportunity to have a direct media like the FAST channel that can enable and develop an additional reach, significantly additional reach, that's definitely really, really important. Europe plays a very important part of our content strategy and in general of our marketing and commercial activities. But of course, football is a global sport, so according to that, we have several countries in which we register a growing and strong interest from the different fan bases. So we have an important following in North America, South America, as well as Middle East and China. Having direct, channels, both linear or fast, is something that is really important because, pushes ourselves to create and build a program that meets the expectation of the fan. We can leverage on a magnitude of different contents that are made of archive and library content from the contemporary ones. We have to deal and to play with everything that's about the centralized rights by the leagues or the international competition, but we have a vastity of opportunities in order to create the right content. It has also to meet and we always try to meet the expectation of the fan that of course are changing in terms of consumption and in terms of interest in different content, because of course the new generation are significantly changing their behavior. If we want to engage with the new generation, also the kind of content that we have to deliver have to change. So what was since years ago more around the 90 minutes of a game now is made of other kind of content that puts the player more at the center of the narrative or behind the scene content, and other kind of assets that are much more engaging for the new generation. Enabling a much wider reach across the continent is something that is maybe even indirectly generating a much higher value rather than what can be directly generated through the FAST channel. It's vital in my view, and that's why I've been since the beginning of this project so committed on it, because basically I see, especially for a club like ours that is looking for new opportunity for expanding the reach and engaging with new target and new audience across the globe. And it's a way also to present and to propose our club to new audiences in a different way, having the chance to leverage and to manage directly our programming and our content. The overall, virtuous circle of value creation is made of different specific steps. So again, coming back to the beginning, it enables to play around the motion with the content, increasing the global reach. When it comes to defining new ways, a new opportunity of monetization, of course, a FAST channel is part of the scope. And so it's also important then when it comes to a direct monetization through advertising of our content. But I would see it in a more strategic way as a value enabler for the whole virtuous cycle of the value creation for a football club. We are not talking to customer, we are talking to fan, listening to their needs, their interests is more important. And FAST channel as other opportunities are, the mean in order then to get to get in touch with them and to engage with them.
Let's switch our focus now to creativity, because the same technology that built virtual worlds is now shaping the real one. Alex Blum, COO of Unity, joins Kevin Jansen, CEO of Globant's gaming studio, to explore how real-time 3D and AI are reinventing industries, from medicine to manufacturing, from training to design. Unity's tech is becoming the bridge between imagination and execution. This is where creativity and computation finally converge. Let's dive in.
All the work, the original foundational work that was done in the early days to make the game experience a more lifelike, exciting experience, has all these AI and worldly non-gaming use cases today. The rate of innovation is speeding up.
All right.
Kevin, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Unite. It's great to see you, my friend.
Likewise. Been a few months.
Yes, but today we're here, beautiful Barcelona, for Unity's Unite conference. Thousands of our partners and clients are here, and it's wonderful to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel the same. I really appreciate your hospitality. We are at the same stage where you had the keynote earlier today.
Yeah, it was a remarkable keynote presentation. Executives from the company were able to share the vision, the roadmap, and an exciting partnership with Epic Games.
Nice. That was the big surprise.
That was the big reveal. That was the big surprise, to have Tim Sweeney, the founder and CEO of Epic, on stage with Matt Bromberg, our CEO. It was very exciting. It's a tremendous relationship. And I think it took the entire gaming industry by surprise.
But anyway, we are also here for Globant Converge conference, right? So
yes.
It's hitting two birds with one stone, you can say. Mm-hmm. And as a lifetime gamer, I told you I was very impressed with the news and the announcement, and also reflecting a little bit, how important the gaming industry is for Unity, but also how in recent years the shift has also been towards leveraging this, powerful 3D rendering and 3D engine capabilities, not just for building games, right, but also for other industries. And we announced actually our partnership tied basically to that earlier this year, back in August. And I wanted to ask you, how is that kind of going for you right now, and sure, if you see that becoming even more important in the future?
Well, first of all, we're excited about the relationship with your company, and that's true. We're well known as the world's leading game engine. Lesser known for the non-gaming licensing of our 3D technology, which is extensive. In fact, it's the fastest growing part of our business. And we're heavily involved in digital twin design work, in-car HMI design work and implementation. And there's a very broad suite of use cases and verticals that we operate in the non-gaming world. And partnering with Globant is essential for us scaling that business and responding to the demand that we see out in the market for these types of tools in the support of design simulation, and creating new interfaces for devices such as automobiles.
Very nice. Well, of course, at Globant, we're very, very excited about this partnership as well. And seeing you increase your footprint in so many industries also makes us, very excited, because we announced our AI industry studios earlier this year, and I see a lot of, touching points where we can continue to extend our partnership and bring, new projects and new solutions to the market.
There's no question with the advent of AI solutions that it plays a key role in our product strategies going forward. Whether we're talking about agentic services to help in the design and creation process, or other agent technology that's being used for decisioning around targeting advertising. It's a big part of our product roadmap going forward, for sure.
Nice, very nice.
And there are certain areas of which we could, collaborate, of course.
Well, really looking forward to that, for sure. And, well, I see some industries already have really adopted this a lot. You can see the automotive industry, for example, is really leveraging digital twins and 3D asset solutions. But is there any industry that makes you particularly excited in the future, that you're seeing like the trend of them realizing how this technology that was born in the games industry for games is now really relevant for their business?
I am a bit of a car nut, so I lean towards that. But let me sort of give you a real life example without naming the partner, to the extent that they're leveraging technology from Unity. So our 3D technology is used in the design process for the commercial automobiles and the Formula One cars. It's also used for simulation. Wind tunnel simulation can be done much more cost effectively with our technology. And then there are simulators that are created for the drivers to train. And to actually use the simulators during the race to affect their strategy during the race. And then, of course, with the commercial automobiles, the in-car systems are all powered by Unity as well. And that includes the entertainment systems, the telemetrics, the navigation systems, the mapping systems, and the parking systems. So the use cases within that one vertical is pretty extensive.
It's so amazing. This technology just started purely for the entertainment industry, basically, right? Now is becoming such an important aspect of industries that are so remote, but also so important for daily life, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire industry, not only the software players such as ourselves, but you also can consider the chip manufacturers that, like NVIDIA, that started in the gaming world and now have these very important applications in the AI world as well. So all the work, the original foundational work that was done in the early days to make the game experience a more lifelike, exciting experience has all these AI and worldly non-gaming use cases today.
Nice.
So with your AI studio and our tool set, our capabilities and technologies, I envision a tremendous amount of work together, collaboration, as these markets emerge. And it's global, right? The demand for these types of services and products is truly a global demand. And the fact that, Globant operates in so many parts of the world, as does Unity, that's an important aspect to our relationship and our decision to go very much deep into our strategic relationship with Globant.
Well, thank you for that. And we're already doing a bunch of projects together, and hopefully one time soon we can announce some of it or make it public. But I'm also excited. I see a lot of potential in how those amount of projects, they already started to build up quite rapidly, and with this state of demand that we're seeing from this technology in so many new industries, I really foresee this growing quite rapidly.
Thank you very much, Kev.
Thank you.
Great.
So you told me industry is a big part of your business, becoming more and more important. Can you tell me a little bit more how you foresee us collaborating there?
Yeah, we have a product suite that falls in line with Globant's capabilities very nicely. We have asset manager. You know, when you're in the business of industrial design, there's a ton of assets and files that are created in support of all that, and it becomes a real challenge for businesses to manage all that and to use those files for collaboration purposes during the design process. And with Asset Manager and deployments supported by Globant, we're bringing that out to the world, and it's a very popular product today. It's fueling a lot of growth on the industry side of our business. And there are other applications that we've created for the industry suite that are also very important in collaboration process. And we're deploying those within the enterprise with your help. And that's a very exciting part of our industry growth and scaling of that part of our business in the future.
It makes me very excited as well. And it made me think what you just said, how important of an aspect the UX experience of commercially available game engine or 3D technology like yours is, and how it empowers people that maybe are not that tech savvy but have a lot of input on the creative side, right?
That's very important, because the highly technical people necessary to utilize these tools and to use them in the design process, there's a bit of a shortage around the world. You have a tremendous pool of talent in that regard, but to create additional tools like Unity Studio, and to also add agentic AI capabilities to that process, now broadens the amount of people, the types of roles within the organization that play a key role in the design of the product. We're delighted by our partnership, the relationship that we have with Globant. In addition to all the talent and capabilities that Globant brings to the relationship, we also felt like there was a great cultural fit. Immediately we felt that upon visiting your offices in Argentina, and that's carried forward through the first 8 months of our relationship, and it's only growing deeper. And it was wonderful for you to make the effort to join us here at Unite, and it was my pleasure to chat with you today.
No, absolutely my pleasure. The sentiment is very mutual. You know, back then in your visit, it was quite clear that, you know, we were really made to build great things together, and, you know, time has proven us right. So I cannot be more excited for the future of this partnership. Thank you for inviting me. It was a really exciting day with all the announcements that you had. And I can't wait for, you know, the next conversation that we're going to have.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you again, Alex.
Sports today aren't just won on the court. They're built through data, design, and fan connection. The game also happens off the scoreboard, where technology, media, and emotion collide. Every fan is connected, every experience personalized. The stadium, it's now an intelligent ecosystem. Few teams embody this transformation like the Los Angeles Clippers. Leading that evolution is Gillian Zucker, President of Business Operations, a true pioneer redefining the fan experience. From reimagining the fan journey with AI and real-time data to building the Intuit Dome, a next-gen arena designed for the digital native fan, the Clippers are turning emotion into innovation. Joining her is Carolina Dolan, CTO of Globant's Media and Experience Studio, to explore how technology, leadership, and creativity are shaping the future of fandom. Let's head to Los Angeles for this fireside with Gillian and Carolina.
I really think, the fans are at the center of it all. Obviously we have a tremendous experience and the players have a unique culture that, sort of drives the experience. We like to provide a benefit here in the building for people that makes them feel connected to it, but it's really the fans that write the roadmap for all of it.
We can confidently say that no stadium has raised the bar the same way the Clippers have. They built something completely new, a new way of experiencing every single thing when you come to this venue. And I have the pleasure of being here with Gideon. She is the president of business operations for the Clippers. How are you? How do you feel about being responsible for this amazing venue?
I am great, but you give me way too much credit. The Clippers did not build this. We built this alongside Globant, and it is pretty extraordinary what we've been able to provide for fans. And we're getting attention from around the world, from people excited about the next evolution and transformation of fandom. So it's very exciting.
We're getting awards left and right. I mean, every single person who comes here and everyone who evaluates us, they're just blown away. So one of the things that we like about this stadium, about everything, is that it goes more towards the emotional. It goes more towards how do we drive emotion from people? How do we get people connected? So now that we have something that is emotional, digital, connected, what's the most powerful way to make fans feel part of something bigger, part of something that goes a little bit beyond that?
I think sports and entertainment has always been that a little bit, where this idea that you can come into a building, you can sit next to someone who you've never met before, and you have something immediately in common with them because you're there to watch the same game or to watch the same act. And it opens up an opportunity for people to connect in a way that's quite unlike anything else. But when you add in this digital technological component to it, you can create personalized experiences for each person while they're in this community. And I think it draws people even closer together.
Do we think we're putting more effort on the community, or do we think we're moving towards synchronized kind of individual experiences?
I think both. It's interesting as people spend more time kind of with their heads down, engaged in their phone or on their computer. There's so much of life that's become a virtual world. I was talking with somebody who was talking about how they take experiences from inside of games now and create real life experiences outside of games. And I think so many of these games are actually based on a real thing. So now we're taking a real thing, we're turning it into a game, and then we are turning it into an experience. And I think a lot of that is because people crave this opportunity to connect with others in person, in real life. And these opportunities are becoming fewer and further between as so much of life has turned to digital or to technology. So having an opportunity to have an event, particularly a live event that does that, it gives you an opportunity to do both.
So one of the challenges you've had, and everybody has, when we're disrupting, when we're changing things, is you have to create a culture of innovation. You have to change from within. What do you think was the key for you guys to be able to push the boundaries forward as much as you have?
When we first started dreaming about what this could potentially be, it wasn't about transforming an experience. It was really just about creating an experience that was better than the one that existed today. And so we sort of made a map of everything that people face, all the friction that you run into when you attend a live event. And as we thought about each one of those, we thought about how it could be solved. Could it be solved through architecture? Could it be solved through technology? Were there ways that we could make certain problems that exist go away? So, for example, lines. Lines are something that if you attend a large event, you sort of have this expectation that you're going to have them. You're going to have lines to park. You're going to have lines to get food. You're going to have lines to go to the restroom. And so some of those things could have been solved through architecture, and that's how we tackled those. For example, restrooms. You can just build more. And if you do that and you put them in the right places, then there aren't lines at the restrooms. But when it came to the technology around concessions and food and beverage, what we really had to focus on is what is it that takes the most time? And we found interesting things, like we found this idea of fountain drinks, that when you go up and you order a fountain drink, if the person who's working the register has to pour that drink, it takes, 45 seconds to pour this fountain drink. And so every one of those, people are waiting in line. If you've got 4 people in front of you, that could be an extra 5 minutes waiting in line. So we thought about that and figured a way to solve that could be that instead we sell an empty cup. It's refillable, you can have as much as you like, but you have to fill the fountain drink yourself. And we placed those in the concourses. So some things were addressed in that way. But what we really needed was the help of a partnership technology to be able to create more of a grab and go opportunity. So it's almost like you're in your living room, that if you wanted a drink, you could open the fridge, pull out the beverage of your choice, and just walk back to your seat without ever stopping and engaging with a cashier, which really slows things down. And that's where, technology really came to the rescue. And through a relationship with Globant, we were able to provide something to fans that absolutely created a transformative experience across the whole building. It required everyone, though, to double down on this idea that this was the experience that we were going to go for, and that we were going to do everything that we needed to do in order to build this and commit to it and make sure that we stuck with it until it worked. And what we've got here now as we enter our second season at Intuit Dome's an experience where fans come in and literally lines are a thing of the past, which is pretty incredible when you think about a building that holds 18,000 people.
It's not just incredible for the building, it's incredible for everybody else, because once you've done a concert here, once you've done a basketball match here, you go somewhere else and you're like, oh, really?
It's funny, I was hearing a story from one of our season ticket holders who said that they were somewhere at another event and the person there said, they don't have zoom-throughs here, which is the technology that we use to move people around the building.
They even use the name?
Yes, they knew the name.
That sort of takes it to a next level because you branded it.
Yes.
People know what it is.
Well, we do heavily promote it because it's your way to zoom through the building. You can take a selfie of yourself and the entire experience is powered just by your face. So you're able to walk by and have whatever transaction you need to have. So it helps you with your purchases, your ticket taking, your club entries.
We always say that one of the things is we get used to technology very easily. So one of the challenges that this brings is now you go to an airport and you have to scan a new ticket every time you get a boarding pass. It's like, why can't technology evolve everywhere? I mean, the technology is there. It's just about what investment we put there.
I think the airports are getting really good at it. More and more I'm seeing they're testing. They're using a lot of facial ID. It's getting faster and better. I think all of their technology is really improving. And they have something similar to what we have here, which is they have a one-to-one relationship with everybody who enters into the airport. Everybody who enters in the airport has their own ticket for their plane. And we have the same thing. Each person has their own ticket for their seat. So it enables us to create something similar, which is this very customized experience.
Now that you have the one-to-one relationship and you have the customer's experience, how do you take that further? What do we do to build that loyalty with the fans?
We're having a lot of fun with that this year. Year one was really about learning, collecting information, making sure that everything worked correctly and was very stable. And now we're able to begin our journey into how we can make these experiences specialized. So we launched a new program this year called Wave Makers. And we've built out a program where we're asking fans to essentially gamify cheering. So we want them to show up to games early. We think that's important, that they be in their seat when the game starts to help our team start a game with momentum. And we reward experience points for all of the things that they do that we ask them to do. So if you show up 30 minutes before tip, you can earn an early bird badge, which is a badge that you can put on your virtual clipboard. And you also get experience points for that. The same if you're in your seat at the start of the game, if you're in your seat at the end of the game. We have technology that can determine decibel levels down to an individual seat. So if you're cheering for the team and you cause a block to happen, you can get experience points and you can get a badge for a block party. So all of these things that we want fans to contribute to help motivate our team and create more a competitive home court advantage are things that we reward. And we're having a lot of fun learning about how that works. Our sort of next generation idea for this is, can we bring that to your home? So this idea of Clippers at home court advantage, where we can reward you virtually even if you're not in the building.
Okay, when technology, media, and culture converge, right? You have what we have here. You have all the three, the trifecta. what's more important? Who's driving and who's leading the evolution of the sport? Is it the teams, the partners, or the fans?
I think everything starts with the fan. I've always thought that if you just do that, if you just listen, if you just stay connected, you will have your roadmap. You will learn everything that you need to know. It's the answers to the test, which is why we spend a lot of time talking to fans and a lot of time talking to the people who talk to fans the most. So our hosts who have all sorts of interactions. We've really encouraged an environment where they're constantly giving feedback saying, oh, I spoke to this person and they said, wouldn't it be cool if they could do this? And that gives us the concept for what we're going to build next.
What's ahead? Because once you raise the bar, everybody expects you to keep pushing the bar forward, right? It sets you in a different playing field. How are you guys going to keep surprising everyone?
We're going to keep listening. We talk about this a lot. Where is the next grade of innovation going to come from? And the answer is it could come from anywhere. And we remember that. So maintaining a curiosity, asking people what they think. Do you have ideas about what could be next? Is there something that you wish that we would do that we don't currently do? Is there something we currently do that you wish we didn't do? Listening to all of those things and really taking them in, not as criticisms, not as concerns, but really as, inspiration for what we could do next.
I've noticed we talked for a while. We haven't mentioned AI properly at all. But I think that's the beauty of it. One of the magical things of this is that technology, when we speak of technology, it includes every shape and form of technology, right? How far do you think we can go? How many technologies can we embed into this? Do we want to go into robotics? Do we want to go into maybe other things that we haven't even considered?
Absolutely. I think that's what's so exciting about AI is that you're able to do everything faster, better, less expensively. And I think it's going to accelerate creativity because people can dream something and they won't need to raise incredible sums of money in order to try to execute on them. They'll be able to do it more efficiently. So I'm really excited about what's ahead in the next 3, 5, 10 years. I think you're going to see tremendous transformation everywhere, and I think it's going to be great fun.
Okay. Well, that was honestly amazing. I love this venue. I love everything that happens here. I still remember the first time I came when it was an opening date and people were just racing through it and their minds were blown away. They would just turn around and go like, wait, is that it? Did someone scan my ticket? What's going on? And that level of surprise and that just amazing people is something that generates a connection, an emotion, something that we haven't had since we were kids, when you were genuinely surprised about things. So I love absolutely everything that we've built here. I think it's been a pleasure being with you for this little bit of time, talking about it. I don't know if you would like to share any closing remarks with our folks.
We couldn't have done this without Globant, and it's interesting that it's all technology because I think that one of the things that's it's enabled us to do is to be able to connect so personally with people. It's not just the idea that people can walk in and they don't realize that their ticket's been taken and that it's convenient for them. We can call them by name. We can greet them on their birthday. We can surprise them with things that they care about because we know more about them. And I think that opportunity to be able to customize experiences for these fans who invest so much in order to come be part of what we've built here is amazing. So we're incredibly grateful to the whole team at Globant for what we've been able to do together. Thank you.
What started with a simple question is changing how business think, work, and grow. Globant is partnering with OpenAI to scale AI from individual use into enterprise-grade AI transformation, the perfect match of world-class technology and proven digital expertise. Accelerate Gen AI adoption and turn vision into value faster than ever. It starts with a simple question. Are you ready for AI transformation? Globant, technology that dares to delight.
Welcome back, everyone. At Converge, we've seen how AI is changing the game across industries, but some transformations go beyond technology. They're about purpose, scale, and national impact. That's exactly what's happening at YPF, Argentina's leading energy company. Together with Globant, they're reimagining their entire supply chain through a groundbreaking platform called Digital Supply, built with 46 AI agents and powered by Globant's AI Pods model. It's a bold move, using technology not just to optimize operations, but to fuel the country's growth and future competitiveness. To share how vision meets execution at this scale, please welcome Horacio Marin, CEO of YPF, for a conversation about leadership, innovation, and transforming the energy industry from within. Let's dive in.
Artificial intelligence will throw away human beings. No, it's a tool. It's a tool that you can improve the things. And when I think that we can have a system that when I have to buy something, the system tells me what is a better for the company, for this company, is a change, a big change.
It's a big pleasure to be with you here. Thank you very much for coming to Globant Converge 2025. And I had 3-4 questions that I would like to cover today. But the first one is, Argentina is very well known for its soccer, for its agriculture, for the tango, but also is very well known for its natural resources and energy. And YPF is a symbol of that, and it's an Argentinian symbol, right? And I would like to have like an explanation coming from you for all our audience today about what's the meaning of YPF for you and for the country.
Okay. First, thank you very much for the invitation. And for me, you are my hero because you are an entrepreneur. I'm not. I am a good employee. YPF is Argentina. And really is that. We have today 90% of people that they have positive image of our company. And I think what we are doing now, I'm very proud because we put like a goal that is not a goal only for YPF, it's a goal for all the industry, and it's a goal for the country that is to reach in 2031 30 billions of export for energy. And as the number that we have now is in the order of 50. So we are very proud that we are going to reach 50 and help our country to be a better way to live. And my grandson, for my daughter, to think, to maintain their zip code here, not try to go abroad.
I love that idea about making the country great and having a great country for our sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters. So I'm passionate about what YPF is doing everywhere, and I know from listening to you in many other interviews that you are embarked in a pretty ambitious transformation program for the company. So would you like to cover that and to explain to us which is that transformation program?
Okay, transform is the management, okay? We said that now we have to have management and passion, and to have as a goal the profitability. And we put 10 words, that 4 is for profitability. There is different words to say profitability, efficiency, blah, blah, blah. 2, we say meritocracy and another ones. And the last one is passion. So what we did is very clear, and always we make a control management for ourselves. Every 3 months, I talk with all the employees and say, this is my management control for me. What is the 4 pillars to obtain that goal? And there are 4, and they are easy. Everybody knows now, at least in our company. I think it's out also. That is to make value for all the shareholders. How? First pillar is to invest in the more profitable asset that we have, which is Vaca Muerta oil. And the second is the active portfolio management. That means is I have to sell, we sell, and I have to buy, I buy. But if I lose money there, out of there, and concentrate what we make money for value for all the shareholders. The third one is what I love from when I was very young, is to make efficiency. Efficiency doesn't mean to dismiss people. Efficiency is to make things in a better way, be disruptive. I think you are part of our disruption, that we have some projects together. And the last one, what I'm very proud, is the LNG. The LNG is a country change of the country, because the LNG in Argentina was more an idea, and now it's more a reality, and that will make to Argentina all the projects $350 billion in exports from the 30s to the 50s. So I'm very proud of what we are doing.
So I think now you're reinventing the whole YPF again, and that energy that your people is feeling is exactly what you're transmitting to them. I mean, this long-term vision, this long-term goal is something that, you know, is welcomed by everybody. Everybody needs to have those kind of large visions in place. And one of the things that you're doing extremely well is that you are embracing the next generation technologies. You're embracing AI to accelerate many of the processes that are needed to be changed in YPF. And one of them is the partnership we just announced together, and which is transforming through AI the whole supply chain, right? And my question here is how do you see that project? Which kind of transformation do you want? And the next question is, put all together. The next question is, which other places inside YPF you see like can be transformed using AI?
Okay, the project that we are facing, I think, is what we have to do. Everybody is expecting something that it will be wonderful, disruptive, and unique. Really, in a company that we sell in the order of 20 billion per year, and also we have, I say, cost plus capital more than 10 billion, 12 per year. You need new technology. Why new technology? No, because it's good to use new technology. It's because you can do in better way. Why? Because I think that an old man is the guy that say before the thing is doing better. I think the evolution of the human being means that every time that is a new technology you are adopting means that you are doing something that is better than it was before. I know that I am a mature guy, that I cannot manage all that, but I push a lot. Why? Because imagine a company like us. You cannot imagine what it is to use a SAP for me to approve 12 billions and people to buy. And today is more, it's not a mess because the people is not good. It's a mess because we have not a system. And really what you are doing with us is excellent, because we are using agent of AI. We are using the people, because I think it's not good. It's wrong to say that the artificial intelligence will throw away human beings. No, it's a tool. It's a tool that you can improve the things. And when I think that we can have a system that when I have to buy something, the system tell me what is a better for the company, for this company, is a change, a big change. And I think after our decision, there will be a lot of copy. I think you are going to make a lot of money after this application.
I love that innovation spirit. I think that every time that you're thinking about a new solution like this, it can be applied to the supply chain, but it can be applied to pretty much any other process of a company. And the big challenge we will have moving forward is that how we translate all these massive technologies into real, business cases. And I think that YPF is doing that. I mean, it's applying it to supply chain. From if I need something, then I check the warehouses. If it's not on the warehouses, there must be a contract with some vendor, and then if not, we call to an RFP and we get that proposal. But all that process in general takes a lot of time, and what we're trying to do here is to coordinate that effort into something much more easier for the user.
50,000 prices per week today.
Wow.
It's impossible. When I see the results, and also we put an error function, so nobody can realize if we are increasing or not. That is a tool that is impossible to do without AI. Impossible. It's impossible. What I realize when you change technology is very important to do something very quick, so the others look at the difference, and after everybody want to change. That is what we are doing in YPF. That's why I push a lot in the application that we are working. Reduce 2 months is very important, because after we can go all the company, because we have to change the technology.
I heard also about the YPF app, right? That it has millions of users. I mean,
yes.
Pretty much everybody is using it to pay it on the gas stations with the YPF app that we developed together. And now you can wire dollars into it. Are you planning about something more extraordinary?
So you can pay in dollars, but we are developing now. I think in 2 months we will have...
Not just in pesos, also in dollars. Right?
Pesos, dollars, and in cryptos. In 2 months, I think you can pay in cryptos, if you want. It's your decision.
That's amazing, to buy gas with crypto, with Bitcoin or with USDC. Or
we are developing that. And also we are developing the application that you can... It's not we are going to compete with excellent companies, okay? As in Argentina, is Mercado Pago the best. It's not our idea. My idea is to have a lot of things inside, so the people can have a good experience, go to YPF, and also it's for our trademark. Why? I always say, if you go to a gas station and the bathroom is clean and the hamburger is good, I'm sure that you think that we are drilling good wells. So it's a way you have to be across all the company that the excellence is the key.
To close, Horacio, let's talk a little bit about our country, about Argentina. There's a massive transformation, which you are part of it, and you're part of the next generation of thinking of how Argentina must, evolve. And I would love to hear your long-term vision for Argentina and what you're expecting. I know you're working for your granddaughters and your daughter, but what you're expecting.
I think the President Milei is transforming the Argentina in a way that is what we deserve. They are making good transformation in a good direction. Also, what I see, I'm looking, I love the statistics, that the young guys in YPF, they are thinking different than the old guys of YPF. And that makes that the Argentina, there is a cultural transformation that nobody can stop.
Horacio, thank you so much. Be sure that we will be helping you and the rest of the team at YPF
we need
to
your
make
help.
this transformation.
Help.
I hope we are part of that transformation too. So we have great expectations. So thank you so much for coming here today.
No, thank you.
And thank you very much for being part of Converge 2025.
No, thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Esteban Sancho, Chief Technology Officer for the US at Globant. It's great to be here with you today, right in the middle of an event full of ideas, energy, and big bets for the future. So let's jump right in. Today, we are living through the collision of two massive forces. The first is impossible to ignore, generative AI. It's redefining what technology can produce and how fast it can produce it. The second force is one we live with for far too long. The traditional professional services model, built on 7 hours, simply can't keep pace with an AI-accelerated world. I spent more than 20 years in the IT services industry, and for 2 decades, one thing has always bothered me: the misalignment of incentives in the hourly model. When you sell hours, productivity is quietly impacted. Speed becomes penalized, efficiency reduces revenue, and ambition hits a ceiling. It's honestly the reason I've stayed at Globant so long. We never grew by spending huge marketing budgets. We grew because our only option was to over-deliver for clients. Good enough was never good enough. But across the industry, that hourly model persisted. And now AI is breaking it completely. When AI compresses workflows and executes tasks instantly, tying value to hours simply feels outdated. It's time to move from buying time to buying capacity. Of course, saying this is easy. Doing it inside a large enterprise is hard. Today, we see a wide spectrum of AI adoption. On one end, big organizations buying thousands of licenses, rolling them out, and hoping for magic. 6 months later, nothing changes, because the tools are new, but the processes are old. On the other end, AI-native startups. They operate in a completely different way. They are spec-driven, AI-first, and treat AI as a force multiplier. They aren't looking for 10% improvements. They look for 10x. Our job, working with some of the world's leading brands, is to find the practical middle ground. How do you get startup-level velocity without sacrificing the quality, security, and confidence enterprises require? Because you can't trade enterprise-grade rigor for speed. You need both. Here's the truth. You can't just give teams AI tools and expect transformation. We learned we had to rethink the entire software development lifecycle. We redesigned processes from the ground up. We defined new roles. We retrained our people, not just on skills, but on mindset. We asked them to stop thinking of AI as a helper and start thinking of themselves as orchestrators of AI. We moved from AI helps a human code faster to AI is part of an industrialized production chain. This rethink led to AI pods. AI pods are a new operating model. They shift engagement from buying hours to buying guaranteed, predictable, AI-accelerated capacity. Instead of a black box of human effort, we use industrialized workflows. Domain-specific engines generate the artifacts. Human experts validate them. And enterprise-grade quality is built from the start, not reviewed at the end. Our best people. All the ceremonies and strategic decisions remain human-led. But behind the scenes, AI accelerates every step of the chain. It finally aligns our incentives with yours. Deliver the highest quality outcome in the shortest possible time. Let me make this concrete. A few months ago, a major European financial institution came to us with a huge regulatory challenge and a hard deadline. They realized that using traditional delivery models, they simply wouldn't make it. The risk was massive. So they brought us in. We didn't deploy traditional squads. We deployed AI pods. Using this industrialized AI-first model, we completed the entire scope in half the time originally estimated. They met their regulatory deadline comfortably. And while yes, there were cost savings, the real story was time to market. When being late isn't an option, the old model falls short. With all that said, let me tell you this. We are convinced that capacity-based, AI-orchestrated delivery is the future of our industry. But we also know every organization walks this path at its own pace. We will continue to deliver traditional professional services where they make sense. And at the same time, we'll keep investing aggressively in AI pods because they represent an operating model that will soon become the norm. Our commitment is simple. Meet you where you are today and help prepare you for what's coming tomorrow. Thank you.
think AI is probably way bigger than what we saw in the internet era or the mobile revolution. I think this technology or this revolution, contrary to others, is going to create an existential crisis for some, and it might create actually a tremendous potential to create new leaders. I'm a huge believer that success equals differentiation. And if you don't differentiate, you will die.
As an entrepreneur, I always got in love with stories. And what a fantastic story is the one of Marcelo Claure. Marcelo, who comes from Bolivia, emigrated to the US and in 1997 founded Brightstar. At that time, Brightstar was a small distributor of mobile phones. Eventually, Brightstar grew up to be the largest distributor globally of mobile phones. And Marcelo became the CEO of Sprint, leading Sprint through the integration with T-Mobile. Marcelo made and led an amazing transformation using AI. Eventually, Marcelo also led Shein, where he's now vice chairman. As you know, Shein has been a retailer that reinvented the entire retailing of clothing. Lately, Marcelo also started, not only he has been COO of SoftBank, but also he founded the AI Intervention Fund, a fund where he aims to transform large companies through the power of AI. Here we are today with Marcelo, and I would like to welcome him.
Thanks for inviting me. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, so I couldn't be more excited to finally chat with you and the Globant ecosystem about what's next in my life, and also, but more importantly, what's next in the world.
Yeah, definitely a lot of things happens. As I say, in 2022, at the end of it, we were exposed for the first time to generative AI and the power, and it became suddenly a big phenomenon between all the consumers. But when it comes to transforming enterprises, we have seen a slower adoption pace. And now with your AI intervention fund, you're trying to find opportunities. Where have you seen those opportunities?
Yeah, so let me just take a step back and talk about how I see AI, right? I think AI is probably way bigger than what we saw in the internet era or the mobile revolution. And the reason why is this is a horizontal layer that means it reminds me a lot of electricity, right? It applies to everything. And I think AI will be a disruptive force at different stages of pretty much every industry, every company, and every function within a company. So I think that there has never been a more exciting time to be an entrepreneur. There has never been a more exciting time to be alive. I think this technology or this revolution, contrary to others, is going to create an existential crisis for some, and it might create actually a tremendous potential to create new leaders. I think most of the value, contrary to other revolutions, will be in incumbent, will be in established enterprises that have data, that have cash flow generating businesses, that will have a competitive advantage to apply AI to their businesses and be able to detach themselves from other businesses that will not apply AI. And in some cases, they will have to compete against AI first companies. I like education because, like you, I'm Latin American, and we're always looking for equalizers. And, what we have today, and we don't need to travel far away or anything, what we have today in our smartphones, you have the most intelligent research assistant, right? I mean, we can pretty much get Gemini or ChatGPT and be able to have an assistant that has answers to most of our questions, that has an opinion, that can help us guide better research. And I do believe that once you start using technology, once you start using AI, basically you're equalizing your level of knowledge. But from an AI perspective, we're going to start introducing the concept of micro-personalized education. I mean, the emergence of AI tutors
where they're available to you 24/7, that you can ask any questions, that they can guide you in problem solving, that have cognitive skills. So I think education will be one of those that's going to be completely changed and transformed.
Not only the potential lies into adapting and to have a higher degree of personalization, but also the thing is how universities adapt to an ever-changing job description. I imagine a new kind of universities should appear with a fast-paced adaptability.
So universities are going to have to adapt to not only provide the traditional 4-year degrees, but they're also going to turn into institutions that will have to do fast upskilling and reskilling of people who otherwise are going to lose their job. So I do think the first thing that universities have to do is we have to change our curriculum to start teaching our students how to apply AI to the real world. And today there isn't. You look at most degrees that are being granted, there should be a minimum certain amount of credits. It should be mandatory. How do you learn to use AI? Because when you go in the real world, right, you're going to be competing with people that know how to use AI. So you better become an expert on how can you leverage the biggest, the biggest platform that can make you way smarter in anything that you do.
I always say that we are just scratching the surface when looking at AI as a productivity tool for individuals. And I believe that reason is why organizations haven't significantly improved their bottom line, despite all the productivity we have seen in the recent years. The actual transformation, the most powerful transformation, is essentially changing the playing field, understanding all the workflows that connect the entire company and being able to coordinate all those processes into a single one. I believe that that's going to be the most profound transformation, one in which organizations will require a lot of consensus, a lot of trying to avoid the paralysis, the decision paralysis that you face when you have so many options. You go out there and you see an enormous amount of offers from different vendors when it comes to AI. So what do you choose? How do you start? That creates some of the reasons why organizations have been far slower than individuals when adopting it. But now that you are doing the AI intervention fund, how should organizations look at reshaping the entire landscape? Not just from a personal basis, but how shall we take a look at the complete picture of the business in order to optimize it for the times to come?
I will share with you the T-Mobile story, right? After I left SoftBank, I remained the largest independent shareholder of T-Mobile. And T-Mobile is today probably one of the most successful stories of any company. T-Mobile, the new T-Mobile is the merger of two struggling companies that could never compete against AT&T and Verizon, because AT&T and Verizon had the scale, they had the size, they had the financial power to basically keep us as a small company. Once we merged, we suddenly combined our customers, we only had one network, and then we started getting the scale. And fast forward today, T-Mobile is the world's most valuable telecommunications company. And I'm a huge believer that success equals differentiation. And if you don't differentiate, you will die. So what did we do? Everybody kept on hearing about AI. So I grabbed the entire management team of T-Mobile and we basically went to Harvard for 3 days. And in Harvard, we started seeing what is the art of the possible. And then you start thinking and you say, okay, how could we be a company different? And then what we did at T-Mobile is we figure out 4 or 5 use cases. We set up a program that say, how can we run the business more efficient using AI? How can we grow revenue using AI? And how can we actually build new businesses using AI? Then we invited the leaders of the top AI companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, Amazon, and so on. And then we started brainstorming. And we at T-Mobile, we chose 5 to 6 major use cases that are going to be big, cases that are going to change the P&L of the company. Then we move on to the next one. And we did this incredible exercise. T-Mobile has close to 140 million customers. And we say, imagine if we could assign a CMO to every single customer, who every single day we would do a daily review of how do we serve that customer. Guess what? If we do that, we will never lose a customer. And that's what AI gives you. It gives you the ability to create a CMO of one, where we're constantly monitoring how are we serving that customer on an everyday basis. And that way, that customer is incredibly happy. We understand when they need a new iPhone. We understand when they want us to do something for them. And that way, you start seeing our churn numbers being reduced. And that's the type of thinking that you got to apply. Certain things that we learn is big use cases. Don't waste your time trying to do small things, because the amount of work that it takes to do a big use case is the same as small use case. Choose fewer, choose few use cases. At the same time, make sure that anything you do, you tie it to a P&L so you can measure it. And there needs to be a lot of application of change management, performance management. But it all starts with leadership, because a lot of people are scared to redesign the way they work, to redesign workflows, to basically change the way a company works. And an AI intervention never works unless it comes at the top. There are no proof of concept, there are no pilots. You go all in, and it's basically transforming the way companies work.
Simply amazing. Marcelo, I would like to thank you a lot. Your stories have shared a lot of different common things, like the bravery of trying to reinvent an industry, and that kind of leadership is what I believe is going to resonate a lot with our audience. So thank you very much for joining us for Converge today, and for being a great friend of the house. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, and thanks for being such a great partner. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Marketing has always been about one thing: connection. But now that connection is being rewired by intelligence. AI didn't just change the tools, it changed the tempo. Creativity moves at machine speed, but meaning still travels at human pace. That's the tension every marketer faces, between acceleration and authenticity, between data and desire. The real question isn't what AI can do for marketing, it's what kind of marketing do we want to create with AI? And to explore that, we've brought together some of the brightest minds in the industry, from Mercado Libre, Philips, and Garnet Station Partners, in a conversation led by Wanda Vegert, Globant CMO. They'll unpack how creativity, efficiency, and leadership are being redefined in an age where technology can do almost anything, but human connection still does everything. Here's Marketing Rewired, leading in the age of AI.
Hi everyone, I'm Wanda Weiger, Chief Brand Officer at Globant, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this conversation. Today we are diving into a question every marketing is facing. How do we grow? How do we connect and create at a moment where AI is rewriting the rules? I'm joined by three amazing leaders that are not just adapting to this shift, but actually shaping it. I have here with me John Summers from Mercado Libre, Claudia Calori from Philips, Fer Machado, one of the most influential creative voices in our history. And in our industry, of course. This discussion is so important is that the real transformation, it's not just technological, it's also human. And here the brands are navigating this tension that we are seeing between acceleration and authenticity and experimentation and execution, and the promise of AI versus the hesitation it can create. So this panel is basically about cutting through the noise. As GAT, we have our own agency at Globant, our own network, one of the most creative networks in the world, and they like to use the word bravery, and they say that being brave is what sets brands apart. So I imagine that you, as leaders of valuable brands, of shaping how audiences are seeing companies, are used to navigating in these dilemmas. So I would really love to understand your point of views. So first, I have a question for the three of you, and we can start with whomever wants to start. It's not about AI per se, but it touches eventually what this shift is meaning. So, I'd like to start talking about how you make sure that your brand continues to create culture and not just content in a world that is flooded with messages.
I think you nailed it when you actually highlighted the dichotomy between content and culture, and eventually is quality versus quantity. I think we are all faced with the same issue in terms of how many platforms we need to engage with and how much we want to continuously reach out to our audiences from one side. From the other side, I think the risk that we have is really to be, rather than brand builders, bland builders, as in really providing this wallpaper of very neutral content, or if you want something that doesn't move the needle. And the challenge for us, but also the opportunity, is how do you bring it back to who you really are, and how can you actually bring back the values, the authenticity, the purpose of your brand.
If I can add to that, the way we think about it in Mercado Libre, I think we're not always building culture. The reality is, we are a retailer, and we try to fix small things of everyday life. Okay, so what we try to do, some of our messages might be a little bit dry, might be not that new, but we try to deliver them. If it's price, it's assortment, it's convenience. Now that's what people are looking at first in a retailer. We try to do it in the most engaging and straightforward way. If we deliver on that, then we try to give you some rational reasons why to come to Mercado Libre. It might be fast shipping, free shipping, our loyalty program. And if we can create those communications in a creative way, probably that's going to be the best way to cut through in all that noise that you're mentioning.
I think it's very easy for us to get distracted with the sea of complexity that we all live in, and more demand than ever before. Life was easier when I was a brand manager. Today is much more complicated, and I think it will only get more and more complicated. So I feel that I'm a very curious person. I'm always experiment with new things, whether that's AI or new social media channels and all that. But I really focus a lot in terms of mastering some of the fundamentals, which I think is very aligned to what Claudia and Sean said. I think that you increase your chances of having the opportunity or the chance to break into culture if you're true to your brand, if you're delivering or over-delivering what consumers are expecting, and if you are creatively ambitious.
So now I wanted to jump to AI, and one of the first questions that we all get asked about, which is How do we balance AI and data-driven precision with creative instinct when building global campaigns?
So as I was thinking about this theme, I was actually, thinking about one of the most creative campaigns that I ever seen, which is something that Fer did. So the Moldy Whopper, right? Would AI being able to create the Moldy Whopper, by itself? And what I like to think is no, from one side, and also potentially yes, if you really ask or brief AI to get to that paradox, that provocation, and so on, which then for me would prompt the question: how are we gonna help ourselves with again augmenting our ability to imagine something? And eventually a good prompting, or a good training of models will become the new way of briefing. And, like in a good campaign, right? Like if we as clients are able to put already that germ of a creative idea into a brief, then our partners, like our fantastic partners at GUT, come with that, oh wow, like that, the brilliant ideas.
I think the way we make it work today, data is a very important part in terms of understanding insights or giving enough information to our strategies to identify those insights that can inform our campaigns. Then we move to the human element, which is the creativity is coming 100% from GUT and from our creative teams. And I truly believe that it will continue to be that the case. And then we go back to data informing the way we execute those campaigns to make sure that they are as effective as possible.
I think that AI and data, they are not at odds with doing great creative. On the contrary, I prefer to leverage that to mine insights and to find nuggets of ideas where before I was not even be able to cut through the complexity of the numbers. AI also has so many other applications in terms of being able to do better targeting, tailoring assets depending on the different needs and profiles of people. It can help us rapidly prototype things, right? I think that sometimes you have an idea that can be a little bit too abstract or too different, and it can be hard to convince internal stakeholders to buy into it just by explaining. So AI allows you to even show that, you know what I mean, with decent quality and and make it more concrete for people that maybe don't have are not as familiar with with the creative process.
A couple of months ago, the MIT published a paper that was very famous that said that 95% of pilots failed in AI, not because of the technology, but because of execution, most probably. So, and we're also seeing that in marketing. We see tons of tools, we see tons of pilots. How have you managed to navigate in this, I don't know if to say chaos, or in this sea of endless options of AI? And if you have succeeded, if you can share an example, that would be great of what you have done.
AI allows you to fail fast and fail if you use the right way, fail without sinking too much money behind a real execution. It allows you to A/B test. It's not even an A/B test because it's not just A/B. It allows you to prototype things. It allows you to put the right message in the front of the right people. Like when I think about Mercado Libre, when I think about Philips, when I think about Activision Blizzard, where I was the CMO, we have so much data that we need to have these tools in order to take the most out of the data. If I were to say hey, what has been the most impactful use of AI for you? In my case, I think it has been a lot about targeting, hit targeting, and putting the right message in front of the right people.
I do believe that a lot of us are asked to look at what is your AI strategy. You are in marketing, what is your AI strategy? And I feel back to what Fer was saying, well, I have my strategy. How can AI help me to achieve that in a more effective way, like in a more precise way? One use case that we have at Philips, for instance, back to what Fer was saying, is on production. So we do have the opportunity of actually producing assets that a quote-unquote traditional way of shooting would cost us millions. And are also kind of accepting that even the pilots might be sunken costs, like in terms of time, but are part of the learning opportunity for us, because eventually they don't require that huge investment that in other ages, right? Like we would have faced. So the point is of like managing that is more than ring fencing, like, or kind of creating a method in the madness, is to also have that mindset and the openness to say, hey, right, like this is clearly an opportunity for all of us, specifically for us as marketeers. Let's try like as well to not forget eventually what is our job as marketeers, which is connecting with people in a meaningful and engaging way.
Thinking of 2026, the invitation is not how to improve how we're doing things, how you reinvent each of the pieces of that demand generation engine with the information and the tools that you have available today.
Well, thank you guys. I have one last question. If you want, you can answer. If not, you don't need to. In one sentence, how do you foresee the future of marketing?
So overall, I would say very optimistic. The one thing that I would love to see, it's more risk-taking,
I feel like the marketeer of the future, which is like, by the way, tomorrow or like already today, the future like is relatively very close, should be curious, caring, and courageous.
I'm a very curious person. I'm always experimenting with technology. I'm a bit of a geek myself. I'm an engineer. Many people don't know that. And I spend a lot of time focusing on the fundamentals, so I tend to spend more time focusing on the things that I believe are not going to change, developing a good relationship with your creative partners and with your team, and with the cross-functional teams, having a very clear brand positioning, understand your value propositioning, having a strategy and a marketing strategy that underpins that. Sean touched a lot on that. Knowing how to brief, having a good creative criteria. Those things, I think that no matter which technology we have in place, will still be important.
I love both the three definitions and all the panel and all the thoughts and ideas that you shared. I wanted to thank you for joining us again. I think that we had so many good insights, and I think that the audience will be thrilled to hear and know you better. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll be in touch.
In an ever-changing landscape where every decision matters, our mission is clear: to delight our customers at every turn. At Globant, we create the digital products everybody loves and empower global brands by building impactful solutions for millions of people. We are revolutionizing the way software is built with Globant AI Pods, the first subscription-based model for engineering services powered by agentic AI. Expert-led, outcome-driven, and faster than ever. Our studios are responsible for creating experiences that leave a lasting impact, building AI-powered business solutions tailored to each industry, empowering brands with a blend of creativity, strategy, and technology, enhancing efficiency and accelerating breakthroughs with a unique AI model and agents for software development, boosting productivity with cutting-edge tech and implementation services with market-leading partners. Driven by technology and passion, we dare to go far. We dare to disrupt. We dare to delight. Globant, technology that dares.
We should start to be taking quantum and and integrating it throughout the enterprise, right? So even if it's a small POC or a small pilot, or maybe it's an integration between your classical resources, your classical high-performance resources and quantum, this is what has to happen today, right? That you build that skill set up and then you're ready to take advantage of it, and no one gets blindsided, I would say, when the technology is really ready to go.
Hi everyone, my name is Agustin Huerta. I am the SVP of Digital Innovation at Globant, and I have the pleasure to be here with Vincent from IBM. Vincent.
Pleasure is mine. My name is Vincent Beltrani, and I lead our strategic partnerships at IBM. So essentially, I help our large premier service partners build out their practices to deliver quantum services to their clients.
Hi Vincent, it's great to have you here. Pleasure for me discussing and talking to you today about quantum computing. I got to know that you are a quantum chemistry expert, so it's really nice. When is quantum becoming a reality? What's in there for me? So I want to ask you, being on IBM, what is IBM perspective around this? How far away we are and how close we are to actually making a breakthrough in there?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So maybe to give some perspective of where we currently are, where we plan on going. So currently we're in the era of quantum utility. And quantum utility is being able to run a quantum circuit on a quantum computer that is larger than you could ever simulate on the classical machine. And we established that back in 2023. So we're firmly in the age of quantum utility. What we're looking forward now is to the age of quantum advantage. Quantum advantage is when you can run something on a quantum computer that proves real business value. That means I can solve a business problem faster, cheaper, more energy efficient, right? There are a lot of different axes to potentially measure these things on. But we predict quantum advantage sometime in 2026. So it's such a timely question, right?
We're so close.
We're on the cusp of 2026. And to really bolster that case, IBM has recently, with a collaboration with like Bluebit, and then a couple of other organizations, an open source quantum advantage tracker. And I think that's going to do a lot for the field, because what you'll see historically are a lot of claims of quantum advantage, quantum this, and what IBM's decided to do in collaboration with the Flatiron Institute and a number of others is to put this out in the public and categorize different fields and then say, let's put this in the public, let's put our results out there, and let's essentially challenge the rest of the community. So let's make this a community effort to prove whether we've actually hit that quantum advantage mark or not. What's important is to look at vendors' roadmaps. Right? You have to build a business around quantum and delivering services on top of quantum. And you need to align those with our roadmap. And we've had a very, very transparent roadmap for a very, very long time. And I think that's what gives the community the confidence to build multi-year programs, right, that leverage IBM quantum technologies.
I would really love to know which is IBM current state, which is a roadmap that you are seeing ahead, where we are, how close we are to quantum advantage.
Sure. Oh, it's a great question. So today we're in the era of quantum utility. Utility means that we're able to run a quantum circuit on a quantum computer at a scale larger than any classical high-performance computer can do it. We see quantum advantage on the horizon for 2026. At the end of 2025, just recently, we made a number of new announcements to contribute to our roadmap. And those announcements kind of follow two different paths. One is the path towards advantage, and one is the path towards fault tolerance. On the path to advantage, we released a new quantum chip called Nighthawk. And the most salient thing about Nighthawk is that the qubits, the actual individual qubits, are connected in a square lattice topology, which just means that more qubits have nearest neighbors than before, right? So that is a very key step in being able to reduce the size of a lot of your circuits. And on the flip side, on the path to fault tolerance, we've just released a new experimental chip for our research called Loon, and that chip demonstrates all of the key features for fault tolerance that we'll need. So what our plan is for the Nighthawk, we'll continue to build out more qubits, as well as the ability to run more gates. On Loon, the one that's headed towards fault tolerance, we'll continue to scale that up. So for the next 26, 27, 28, our eyes are towards quantum advantage experiments on something like Nighthawk. and then eventually 2029, which will be, that processor will be called Starling.
I would love to hear from you which other industries,
Sure, yeah.
use cases.
So as part of this push towards quantum advantage, it does seem like the first advantage will be demonstrated in something like a early drug discovery phase where you're still trying to research the target molecules, for example. So we see a lot of utility there. Essentially, that's kind of the Hamiltonian simulation side of things, or simulating nature with quantum computers. So that will have use cases in drug discovery, protein folding, like you had mentioned. Then another big case, if I can abstract it away, is the optimization use case, right? Because you could see that having broad applicability kind of across the board. So whether that's logistics, finding better routes, for example, right? Minimizing fuel consumption. But you can also think of optimizing my portfolio, for example, in a financial use case. So I think that's another important thing to keep in mind. And then, of course, there's quantum machine learning, right? So we have a number of examples there where we're leveraging machine learning. We have some image classification work. We also have a lot of work with some financial institutions. We're doing a lot of work with called quantum feature mapping. And I think that combines actually the best of both worlds, right? So leveraging quantum to essentially kind of lift those input features into a larger space, and then use those as feature vectors to maybe my classical AI algorithms. So a lot of use cases across the board.
I've been approached recently on a Architect of the Future series that as we call it, they asked me, hey, how do you plan innovation within an organization? And I was like, well, there is this rule that Google CEO in the past said that you have to spend 70% of your daily efforts into your core business. Then you have to spend 20% into innovation that is close to the core. And then you have 10% that is really preparing you for the future. Yes, I like to say that we have been leveraging that 10% with AI, with quantum computing, robotics, and other fields. And I believe that organizations should be looking within that 10% to quantum and do not lose track of that. That 10% sometimes is hard to safeguard, you know?
No, 100%.
Like, hey, I need to, you know, get some extra budget. Well, 10% of innovation goes away. But it's the one that really prepares you for the future. So in that line, I would like to think how you see quantum in that, how much effort or how organizations need to start thinking around quantum.
So if I talk about our roadmap, we have fault tolerance on our roadmap for 2029. And that's not much time, right? So you have, on one hand, people who are kind of willing to wait for 2029, but in my mind, and to IBM, you know, the race doesn't start in 2029. So I think about it more as almost a marathon, and maybe 2029 is mile 5 or mile 6. And at mile 5 or mile 6 of a marathon is when the people who haven't really prepared for the actual marathon
keep on running.
Yeah, right. So they drop, and then the people who have prepared and spent time and build up their stamina. And I'm making an analogy that it's really the companies today that are putting in the effort. That's with upskilling their current workforce. So a lot of what we see today is maybe we're cross-training AI experts or data scientists and machine learning engineers to understand quantum. We're working on proof of concepts for each different service industry. So for Globant, you pick your 4 or 5 target verticals. And we say, what's the most valuable proof of concept for us to build together, both our partners and IBM together, so that we build up those skills and we flex those muscles, so that when 2029 comes around and we start running real, you know, fault-tolerant algorithms on quantum computers, IBM and all of IBM partners and all of our partners' clients can start taking advantage of it.
I believe that, well, right now you have this kind of a new keyword that has arisen, like this AI paralysis. That I believe it's driven by many different things. One is maybe people not really understanding how to leverage AI on the business. At the same time, it's like this evolving tech ecosystem that everyone is like, well, when it is ready for my level of confidence. And I believe something similar can happen with quantum. You know? What is your thought around it?
If you don't start taking advantage now during this utility era that we're moving to the advantage era, you will eventually get left behind. And I can tell you in a kind of a clear way, think about AI projects. There's so much behind an AI project besides just actually training a model, right?
Yeah.
Even just data. Is your data ready to go? So is it all collected or does it still live in silos? When you think about quantum, you actually have a lot of the same kinds of things. Like, I'm not going to be able to build a quantum machine learning model unless I have the right data. right? Unless I have the right pipeline set up. Or these shouldn't be science experiments. So we say to people, well, get your data ready for AI. That means it's also going to be ready for quantum as well.
Right.
And then I think in addition to data, the one thing that we also need to understand is that since it's such a new field, we need the experts who can translate business problems into quantum algorithms, right? Because it's fun to talk about quantum algorithms. It's super exciting. It's super exciting running them and figuring out how to do error mitigation strategies. But when you actually go in and build a services company, or you're running services for some of your clients, it's being there and understanding the business use cases, being able to translate those business use cases, the ones that are the most valuable to your clients, and saying, all right, I know that we can run this as an optimization algorithm, for example, or this is a materials use case and it's great for quantum simulation. So we also need, on top of data, we need the people, right? And that's a really big, important part of this.
I believe that the whole engineering process around quantum is going to be different too.
In that as well, right? So we have, when you go to run a circuit, for example, it has to get transpiled, almost machine language, for example. We have AI transpilers now, right? So they're optimizing things.
Nice.
So we're leveraging AIs, or how could I make this circuit shorter? Well, maybe we can pull in some AI to figure out how I can reorganize some of these operations. So there is a very key role even today for AI and quantum as well.
I believe we should right now change it, like, I don't know if forever may be too hard, but for a long time, that is like, hey, quantum computing, as it happens with current traditional computing that is becoming scarce and you are like fighting for the resources, you're not gonna be really, in the short term, maybe running a lot of stuff that goes real time, right? But you have a ton of other processes that never happen real time in real life, and that you can benefit from that. For me, like the clearest example of that is drug discovery. So what do you think about like trying to break that paradigm? Is it true? Do you believe there is something different over there?
That's a good question. I mean, I think at some point there will likely be real-time applications. But in the beginning, they're going to be more of these batch type processes that we're talking about here. But that certainly shouldn't stop anybody, because you're right, for example, I could think of even training, let's say, a quantum machine learning model on leveraging some quantum resources. Maybe the real-time prediction happens on a special AI accelerator, for example, right? So there's just so many different opportunities now, especially with the emphasis on AI, with ASICs or specially designed chips specifically for AI, that you're going to end up having this, what we would call a quantum-centric supercomputing view of the world, where I'll have my QPU or my quantum processor unit working in concert with AI accelerators, maybe their GPUs or other specially crafted devices, along with CPUs. So there's just a lot of room here, to kind of flesh the field out.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Of course. I think we've been through a lot of different topics. I'm really looking forward to the roadmap to how this quantum advantage is reached. You have set up my calendar to be looking into 2026.
That's fantastic. I just want to say what a pleasure it is to have the conversation with you and to really kickstart the collaboration between Globant and IBM Quantum. This is really fantastic.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Up next, a conversation that couldn't be more relevant. The media world is evolving faster than ever, driven by data, creativity, and of course, AI. From how we reach audiences to how we measure impact, everything is changing and the rules are being rewritten in real time. Today's panel, Navigating the New Wave of Media Transformation, explores exactly that. How technology and human creativity come together to shape the future of content, advertising, and connection. They'll explore how AI can empower creativity, democratize access, and drive growth from global platforms to emerging markets. It's visionary, it's practical, and it's what next for media. Let's dive in. Here's Navigating the Next Wave of Media Transformation.
I don't have the responsibility to develop AI to make better the products that I work with. But I have a responsibility to use AI as an agent of change for a more efficient organization within a lab.
Hi, everybody. I want to welcome to Converge Gaston Taratuta, CEO of Aleph Holding, where we're going to be chatting a lot about AI use on enterprise, and especially in this amazing space, which is social media and advertising. Right? So how do you see AI changing the role of human creativity, and especially the role they use in advertising?
You know, we are an enabler of digital marketing in emerging economies. We don't produce AI for the products and services that we offer. I mean, we see heavy investments coming from the products that we work with. Company Silicon Valley is looking at AI to be able to deliver the best message to the right audience at the right moment. For the results that we've seen lately in many platforms, AI and technology is definitely working for these platforms, and it is impacting obviously the results of the campaigns to advertisers. Hence, we see better results when it comes to sales in these platforms across the globe. Now, why I'm bringing this? Because AI is helping to deliver a better message to the right consumer with the right creativity, let's say, at the right time. That makes that you need less reach and frequency. That means less investment. That means better acquisition cost. That means more injection towards marketing and growth, because it's working. The key factor there is going to be not to make the mistake that we did 20 years ago with Google on the attribution of Google, giving the attribution to the last search. When the consumer journey arrived to the search, to the database of intention, because he saw an ad outside, he saw an outdoor, he saw an ad in a newspaper, and then arrived to a search and got a result. In the AI era, you're gonna see platforms, for example, TikTok Shop. It works very well, or Instagram works very well, but you cannot compare all results, put the bar there. You're gonna have to be able to digest other different type of conversions to be able to be within the entire consumer journey. So attribution is critical in the new AI era. That's a little bit of what I see moving forward.
So, Gaston, when you think about leading your teams and products, right, in a global scale, and you're using AI to make smarter decisions, you want to deploy talent in the right way. And also you got to keep the business moving fast. How do you make sense of all that complexity?
AI is a tool that we need to be able to use to make better, faster decisions. Now, the human factor is critical, especially ourselves that operate in 130 markets. You are navigating a lot of local complexity that AI cannot solve, which is central banks regulation on USD, how vibrant is digital currencies in that market, accepting payment or not. A lot of policy making. Now, still our formula is very simple, Nico. I'm gonna share the formula with you and your audience. If you go to the supermarket, if I go to the supermarket and you are the owner of the supermarket and I want to buy apples, the asymmetry of information between you and me, I don't know the cost, and I pay whatever you indicate. The only difference is in asymmetry of information is price. Now, do you understand what it is to be in a digital advertising industry today and be a CMO? It's very complex. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you needed to know TV, radio, outdoor, print, and a little bit of digital. Today you need to know digital, everything else is the decoration, and I can guarantee you the asymmetry of information that there is in the marketing between what marketeer understand what platform is huge.
How do you see the tool of AI as a catalyst for all of that? Because I'm assuming like in a company that scales up like Aleph, you have like everybody's busy, right? Everybody could have more things to do. So how can AI help you optimize and get people to be able to focus on the things that are the most important?
To be honest with you and your audience, I don't know. I have to learn from Globant. For me, everything's happening very fast. If you agree with me, every day there are new tools. They say, people say, no, now with, I can do with AI what 50 coders used to do. I don't have the responsibility to develop AI to make better the products that I work with. But I have the responsibility to use AI as an agent of change for a more efficient organization within Aleph.
The story of growth of Aleph is amazing, and I'm sure technology is going to be a special asset. As you mentioned, like the platforms are the platforms, and they're going to do what they do. But then you have a ton of efficiencies to educate, to help your clients, to keep the organization focusing on what's important. So thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Hey everyone, great to see you. Let's talk about what's really happening in technology, beyond the noise. We've all lived through the AI hype cycle. For a while, it felt like every week someone was announcing a new miracle model, another promise to change everything. And yet, when you walk inside most organizations, what you actually find are pilots that never scale, dashboards full of half-finished projects, and teams waiting for clarity. That's not failure. That's growing up. Because real transformation doesn't happen in cinematic leaps. It happens through iteration, discipline, and people learning how to make technology actually work. That's the stage we're in now. The shift from experimentation to execution, from noise to architecture. And when you step back and look at what's emerging, it's clear. These aren't isolated innovation. They are converging, shaping a new operating system for business itself. That's what's in the next decade we'll run on. Every year, we talk about trends, but this year feels different. For once, the industry isn't asking what's next. It's asking what works. And that's a good thing. Because AI isn't a promise anymore. It's a responsibility to use it wisely, securely, and in ways that create real impact. So let's talk about the 5 forces already redefining how enterprises operate: agentic AI, quantum communication, polyfunctional robotics, ambient intelligence, and AI-powered cybersecurity. Agentic AI. If the last few years were all about assistants that could write emails and create flashy demos, 2026 is about AI that actually gets things done. Agentic AI doesn't just answer questions. It sets goals, makes decisions, and acts. It's the shift from automation to orchestration. Right now, a few pioneering companies are already running autonomous agents at scale. In logistics, they are rerouting shipments before delay even happens. In finance, they are detecting fraud and optimizing portfolios in real time. In retail, they're redesigning entire shopping journeys on the fly. Everywhere you look, these systems are starting to think with us, not just for us. The question for 2026 isn't will agentic AI change business? It's who will scale it responsibly? Who will blend data, creativity, and intelligence into systems that learn and improve every day? Quantum communication. Now let's move from the brain to the nervous system. Quantum communication sounds like science fiction, but it's already reshaping how organizations protect and exchange data. Through quantum key distribution, even the smallest attempt to intercept information instantly changes it, making breaches detectable in real time. That's crucial because hackers today are stealing encrypted data now to decrypt it later, once quantum computing catches up. Harvest now, decrypt later. That's the threat. But quantum isn't just about defense, it's also accelerating AI itself. By 2026, nearly 20% of quantum algorithm revenue will come from AI applications, from faster drug discovery to next-gen chip design to smarter financial modeling. At Globant, we see quantum communication as the immune system of the enterprise, working alongside agentic AI, the brain, ensuring resilience, trust, and speed. Polyfunctional robots. Now let's give that digital body some muscle. Robots are no longer static machines bolted to factory floors. They're becoming adaptive, mobile, and context-aware. By 2030, 8 out of 10 people will interact with a robot every day, at work, at home, or in public spaces. This new generation of polyfunctional robots combine AI, sensors, edge computing, and digital twins so they can move, learn, and collaborate. But success here isn't just about hardware, it's about intelligence. That's why at Globant, we help companies simulate virtual spaces before building them, connect their decision-making brains, and manage everything through a single orchestration layer. These systems are transforming industries, handling labor shortages, improving safety, and supporting everything from warehouse logistics to healthcare delivery. The result? More efficiency, lower risk, higher adaptability. The era of rigid automation is over. The era of intelligent collaboration is here. Ambient intelligence. Ambient intelligence is the quietest and maybe the most profound of these shifts. It's about technology that fades into the background. Environments that understand context, anticipate needs, and act without instruction. Imagine a home that adjusts lighting to your rhythm, an office that manages energy autonomously, a city that prevents traffic before it starts, or a store where you just walk out and payment happens seamlessly through invisible AI. This is what happens when computing disappears and experience becomes the interface. We call it the age of invisible tech. The goal isn't to use more technology, it's to notice it less or experience it more. It's not about smarter machines, it's about freer humans. AI-powered cybersecurity. The threat landscape has changed, but most defenses haven't. We're no longer fighting bigger attacks, but smarter ones. Deepfake interviews, self-evolving malware, autonomous intrusions that mimic real users. If your defense isn't AI-driven, you're already behind, because the only way to counter machine speed attacks is with machine speed defense. AI-powered cybersecurity means systems that detect anomalies instantly, mitigate automatically, and evolve continuously. Our vision is clear: to fight intelligence with intelligence, to make cybersecurity proactive, adaptive, and deeply integrated into every layer of business. This isn't just about protection, it's about resilience, trust, and clarity. So yes, the noise is fading, and what's emerging is structure. These 5 forces aren't separate innovations. They are a unified architecture for the next era of business. Agentic AI, the brain. Quantum communication, the nervous system. Polyfunctional robotics, the body. Ambient intelligence, the senses. And AI-powered cybersecurity, the shield. Together, they define how enterprises will think, move, and grow in the decade ahead. And for those ready to go beyond the hype, this is where real transformation begins. If you want to explore how these forces will shape 2026 and beyond, click the link in the chat to download our Tech Trends 2026 report. It's not just a look into what's coming, it's a roadmap to help you stay ahead of it. Thank you.
What a day. We started with the question, why do 95% of enterprise Gen AI pilots fail? And over the past few hours, we've heard the answer, not from theory, but from actual leaders solving it. And through it all, one pattern emerged. Execution isn't about the model, it's about the system. It's about that foundational architecture that connects data to decision making. It's about that governance that turns experimentation into something sustainable. And it's about moving from isolated AI features to integrated AI platforms. Because the companies breaking through aren't just running better prompts, they're rethinking their entire technology stack. They're asking, how do we move from proof of concept to production? How do we orchestrate dozens of agents without losing control? How do we make AI decisions explainable, auditable, and trustworthy at scale? That's not just a technology shift, it's an architecture shift. So tomorrow, day 2, we go deeper into exactly that. Globant Enterprise AI takes center stage, live demos, real execution, frameworks, and technical foundations that make all of this possible. From data pipelines to model orchestration to governance at scale, we'll show you how it all connects. Thanks for being part of day 1 of Converge 2025. Rest up, because tomorrow we build the system.